Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 144. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge in the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I thoughtlessly gunned down a global megastar and admit I had no idea how to explain myself to the man's fans. Good thing I can blame Mr. Terrific, so says the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, and new prankster of the DC Universe.
How's it going, eh?
It seems in a post-Darkseid world you're getting involved in all kinds of nonsense, Jim.
I know. What the heck, man?
We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Jim, you and I are going to be at the New York Comic Con, February 6th to 8th. And if you go to RagingBullets.com, you can click on the handy-dandy link up at the top. But every day there seems to be new guests being added from comics, all throughout comic history, actually. We've got classic creators, we've got current creators. They've got all kinds of featured guests. They've got a huge artist alley, and it's just an amazing group of people. But there's even like media guests and literary guests, and it seems like every time I turn around, the Wonder Woman movie, the direct-to-DVD release, is going to be premiered at the New York Comic Con. I know.
I'm like, that's looking pretty good there.
Yeah, I'm excited to definitely be heading up to that one to see that for the first time. That, to me, is just another. I was already super excited to be there. I saw that up on the site. I remember last year, right up until the day of the con, there seemed to be new stuff being added that they were going to be doing. It's almost too much.
Bigger and better every year, man. They know what they're doing, and it's, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm getting kind of pumped and excited. And we're going to have our little table there. We're going to get to meet some people, have some fun.
Yeah, and the podcast arena, it's going to be great. I'm looking very forward to the podcast arena. So that's definitely something. So if you're going to be February 6th through 8th, if you're going to be heading out there, please stop by and see us and go to our website and check out what's going on at New York Comic Con. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. At DCBService.com, you can pre-order Green Arrow Black Canary number 17, written by Andrew Kreisberg, art by Mike Norton and Joe Rubenstein. Merlin's been apprehended, but who's broken him out of custody? And what have they done to him? It all seems to be a horrific love letter to Green Arrow, which does not sit well with Black Canary. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. I just got a chance to read the first issue number 15 from this team, and I'm really liking how it's kicking off so far. So if you haven't been picking up Green Arrow, it's a great time to check it out at a discount. Rebels number 1 is coming out. It's by Tony Bedard, art and cover by Andy Clark. And the future is now in an all-new monthly series. Brainiac 2 is a hunted man. His cosmic police force safeguarded over 80 worlds until a mysterious adversary suddenly seized control. Now Vril Dox must recruit a new team to win back his command and free countless billions. But this time he's based his new group on the greatest heroes and villains of the 31st century. Guest starring Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes. Regularly $2.99, 75% off, only 74 cents. At 74 cents, I can easily try a brand new series. So it's one of the things I really like that DCB Service does to support brand new series so people can check them out and see if it's the right thing for them. So I recommend you check that out. Whatever your shipping preferences, your bag and boarding preferences, DCBService.com is your source for your pre-order needs. Our in-stock trades, book of the month, the brand new one chosen by Mike Sims, is Flash Rogues. This trade paperback is written by Jeff Johns, art by Scott Collins and Brian Boland. Keystone City is on the brink of destruction again, and only the Flash can save it in the Flash Rogues, collecting the Flash 177 to 181. But can he handle Captain Cold and the Mirror Master as well? Throw in Plunderer, Gorilla Grodd, and the Pied Piper into the mix, and it's a recipe for disaster. They're supporting us with a 47% off discount. It's regularly $14.99. You can get it for $7.94, and that's Mike Sims' choice, and I'm really excited that we're going to have a chance towards the end of January to discuss the Flash Rogues. Time to jump into some Jeff Johns Flash run and just have a good time with that. So thanks, Mike, for choosing that. Don't forget that orders over $50 feature free shipping. So thanks for your sponsorship, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. And this episode, Jim and I are going to be chatting about Final Crisis number 5 and Final Crisis Revelations number 4. Jim and I are putting together multiple episodes over the next couple of days because we're trying to get content. He's going on vacation. So I want to make sure that while the holiday season comes in, we have some episodes out for you. We're going to be doing a Doom Patrol Part 2 episode, which is going to be coming out probably in about 5-6 days. Please check the website and the forum for specific details on that. And then we're going to follow that up with a JLA JSA special. And on those episodes, we'll have listener voicemails and stuff like that we're going to be recording and fitting in as well, along with hopefully some speeding bullets, because I have a lot of books I really want to talk about. So keep an eye on the website and the forum for information on what's going to be going on with those particular shows. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullet Spoiler Show. We go in depth into books you know, with plot line, story, twists, and whatnot too. We talk about the DCU. So if you haven't read them, please come back later, my friend.
Jim, when you said you were going to be getting me a holiday gift, I didn't realize it was going to be bleeding ears.
And that is what's called bringing the magic, baby.
Where'd you bring it? That's pretty good, actually. How long did it take you to pull that together?
Well, yeah, funny story. Right as I was leaving work, I just heard Silent Night, someone's ringtone or something like that, and it just popped in my head. As I'm walking to my car, the drive home, the people I do the carpool with, I do apologize to, because I had to sing it out loud and kind of work through the songs, and by the time we get 30-minute drive seemed like a couple hours to them, but, I just literally worked this thing out right before you called.
They have to think you're insane.
They know I'm insane. This is just confirmation. See that?
Final Crisis number 5. The writer is Grant Morrison. Carlos Pacheco, J.G. Jones, Marco Rudy, Jesus Marino on the art, Alex Sinclair colors, Travis Lanham letters, Adam Schlagman is the associate editor, Eddie Berganza is the editor. Jim, right when we jump into this one, which cover did you like better, the Sliver with the girl fight or the Diana cover? Did you get both covers? Did you get one cover? How did that work out for you?
I actually got both covers, and I like the Diana cover better.
Yeah, that Diana cover was really sharp.
For some reason, I like the non-sliver covers a little bit better. I like the full image and the full picture. It just personal choice. I like that for some reason. I'm digging that more.
Well, let me ask you this question: do you think you would like the Sliver cover image better if it was blown up?
Probably.
Okay.
I think it's the Sliver part of it that's kind of throwing me off.
You want to see more of the art?
Yeah, I want to see the full art and maybe, a little bit, because the Sliver cover, if you look at it, has like a little bit more background detail and whatnot, but because it's Sliver, you can't see the whole picture. And I'm like, dang it, I want to see the whole picture. So,
well, the Girl Fight one, I really liked the Girl Fight cover because I was anxious to finally see more with Mary.
Yeah.
And this issue certainly delivered a whole bunch of that, including some answers as to what's going on with Mary.
Yeah, answers and actually a little bit more questions as well.
All right, we'll have to delve into that one. Now, I'm having a blast with this miniseries, but to say this is dark is like a major understatement and a half.
Are you kidding? This is light and airy.
I mean, dude, after I read this, even though there's like this one has some great moments where you can start seeing more rallying and things like that, which I've been looking for, I do have to read a happy comic after this. Because you were talking about how because it's a Morrison comic, you tend to read this one after a few other comics. This is the first one I read when it comes out. And I do need to read something a little lighter, a little bit more uplifting after this. It's not a negative comment on it. It's a very dark, deep story. So it's after this, I go to my books that make me smile a little bit more, just to give me a little balance. Because, I'm afraid I would kill something after reading this. Because really, DC Universe is a very unhappy place to be in the Final Crisis.
Yeah, things aren't going so well right now, but I'm hoping, we get to see the resolution and we get to see the heroes rise up. But that is one of the big things I am wondering what the DC Universe is going to look like once this is all done. I'm enjoying the ride, and with each issue coming out, I'm seeing more of the picture, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. I want to know what happens in the end. What kind of aftermath? Is there going to be a clear-cut ending? Is it going to be an open-ended ending that leaves you going, no, we want an ending? So it's like, wow.
I have all kinds of things running through my head. I mean, there's part of me that thinks, well, sure, they could do the magic wand ending where like everything kind of zaps back to normal, but then I'm kind of like, that's really cheap. I don't know that I see that happening.
No.
Another possibility makes me wonder: are they going to even be on this Earth when all this is done, or is this going to become apocalypse? I don't know. I mean, I've got all kinds of things running through my head. Are we going to see this Earth after Final Crisis, where this continues to be the main Earth that we are used to following, but echoes of what happened in the past still present in the Earth, that that there's an awareness that this actually happened and they went through it? I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities running through my head. I'm not sold on particularly any of them, but I'm very curious to see how this is going to be resolved, because there's two more issues, a lot to resolve, a lot to tie up in two issues. I was glad to see us finally coming back to Hal, because this was a pretty solid setup. Mess with his memory so he had no alibi, put a scar on his head to imply that it happened during a fight with Orion, but in reality the scar was what was implanted in his head. A very solid cover story. I really liked the opening. I'm like, okay, I can see why there, finger pointing's going on. People are going, huh? What happened here? The use of Hal's history as parallax really worked here. In Green Lantern, we get to see that he still suffers from the after effects of this, so it's natural that it would be an Achilles heel to be exploited to frame him. The Alpha Lanterns themselves were created to be infallible, so in that case, they're like, but these are our, major Alpha Lanterns. But in spite of all that, I was really glad to see the respect that Hal's history as an officer, their understanding of what truly happened with Parallax, shined through here. That was really important to me. The Guardians not only wish to hear more evidence, but his friends come to his aid. Again, the police squad approach, fellow officers being framed, and that was not going to wash. He has saved them many times. Now they have to save him. There's a bond. And I really, really liked the opening of this.
Yeah, and there was really a couple cool scenes. When you first see the Guardians kind of start to question the Alpha Lantern, or not even question, just want a little bit more evidence, and then Kyle and Guy show up. One of the panels of Hal, you see him, he's kind of got a little smirk on his face, like, we got you, honey, it's time, it's go time now. And I was just like, I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's right in the background there. I'm like, okay, there is a bit of Hal right there. I was like, yes. And I also liked how Hal's knowledge about how the rings work and just his own willpower was able to fight the Granny-controlled Alpha Lantern. Granny is, powerful, and in a way she does have a mental discipline, but she is not a Green Lantern. She is not an Alpha Lantern. And if she's in charge of all this power, it's, unfocused, uncontrolled power out there. So naturally, someone like Hal could, break the bonds, could fight back, and could, rise up. This is what he does.
He also, though, waited for the moment where her power levels were down. Because if you take a look, we saw her power percentages dropping down. He took advantage of that, and at that time, knowing her power levels were down, it made her a bit more human. In the sense that the Alpha Lantern now was no longer super powerful, and he had one moment to be able to use a fist to take her down, because he didn't have his ring at that point. So I did like that he knew, if I get her unconscious in this ditch moment, there's one opportunity to one-up on her at that moment, something that Granny wouldn't know because she hasn't been an Alpha Lantern long enough to know that. I liked that. So that was really an important part. When you were talking about the smirk, the one thing I liked about that too is it comes after Hal even having to question the fact that he doesn't have an alibi for his time. Because when they're originally interviewing him, Hal has to say, well, I don't, the big problem is I don't know what happened during this time. And that's a gray area for me. So I loved that smirk as well too, because he got to see his friends, kind of lay everything out for him. Now, do you think that Granny revealed herself out of ego? Because they talked about how it was impossible to do what she had just done, so she had to brag about it.
Yeah, that's, I think, big-time weakness that she had, that here she did this, the impossible, and no one said, no, that can't happen. Yeah, it did. Look at me. It's nothing. I'm a god. You are a little peon. You're guardians. I am a god. You have no idea the amount of power that I throw down here. So I completely ate that up, and part of me even wonders if the Guardians were kind of playing off of that, if maybe they were starting to suspect something just by the way she was acting or even sensing from her, so they kind of maybe goaded her a little bit. I'm not sure about that, but part of me was just like, I wonder if they're capable of that type of stuff, because sometimes we've seen them, do a little dance.
Now, see, my thinking too was also, what happens if Granny had stayed hidden? What if she hadn't opened her big mouth there? Would she have succeeded?
It would have been interesting because, you had, now that Hal had people defending him and they're starting to present some evidence, it would have been, a kind of a, I don't know, I want to say a battle of will, but not even a battle of will. It would have been more like, okay, which evidence presented, seems more realistic. And I think all it would have taken is the Guardians to look closer at the Alpha Lantern, start looking into her and see if they see this other force in there. So I think, they were kind of pushing Granny to a point where she needed to react and she needed to act fast.
I did like to see, and part of me read it though as like this. If you take a look at how Darkseid handles his minions later in this issue, Granny's reaction makes sense. She would be excited by the fact that she would be useful to Darkseid. The more useful she is to Darkseid, the better the chances are of her surviving, which seems to be a big problem for his minions. So I really liked how, if you take a look at Darkseid's MO in this issue, Granny's behavior fits even more, that she would kind of I really do take it, though, as Granny shot herself in the foot, more so than anybody else. Her ego got in the way, because it was that opportunity she could not resist to brag.
And she was right there within grasp of the battery. Mm-hmm. She literally was, starting to reach out and starting to try to take control of it. So she's like, I've won. It's that, she was there. So she started doing her end zone dance just a little bit too soon.
I was glad to see that they had a fail-safe in place for this type of event. When you think about it, Hal took over as Parallax, the battery, at one point, and absorbed that power. So it would make sense for them to have fail-safes in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Now, my question is, by doing this, by hiding the central battery, are they weakening the rings? Are they making it harder to recharge? That's what I'm wondering. Like, can they still recharge their rings?
Well, they did seem to hint at that Hal had 24 hours to get down there, which means, it seems like everything would be fairly normal for the Green Lanterns. So I didn't take it as they seem to be any weaker because of this. It's just that the battery was somewhere safe compared to being able to... Because when you think about it, I mean, the battery's all the way on Oa. And, we see people in different space sectors being able to utilize their rings to full power. So I don't think its location on Oa matters as much as the fact that it's somewhere, not in Granny's control. I don't know. I might be wrong there. I mean, maybe we'll see. We've got a battle that's coming. But there was nothing, at least in my eyes, I didn't see anything in this issue that was hinting at any weakness because of this. But maybe there's something to come. Who knows? Darkseid's fall is spreading out from the Earth and affecting the whole universe, and it's great to see the respect and intimidation Darkseid's power seems to bring even the Guardians as they issue caution and show understanding of the anti-life equation when they're talking to the Lanterns. And I did geek out when Hal got his ring back and was given the all clear. I usually grasp at the moments, in this where we see signs of potential uprising against Darkseid. Yeah. So, they bring me some hope in this dark tale. So that moment I was just like, yes! Get in there, Hal.
Oh, yeah, it's time. The can has been opened. It's time. The Green Lanterns are coming in.
The more I see of Renee with this next wave of Checkmate-style storytelling makes me hold out hope that the Rucka Project will have something to do with her. She just has so much potential. And DC needs like an espionage-style book. Checkmate really is important to me, so I'm hoping we get that on some level. It doesn't have to be Checkmate 2 or anything like that, but I want to see that type of espionage storytelling again. And the original Omax, to see them being created as a defense in case the heroes fall at some point, was interesting. We are finally seeing that as long as one person's alive, there is hope that Darkseid will fall. That's the thing about hope. All it takes is one driven mind to inspire others. And those little elements were things I was grasping at too, because I think it's a very true thing about the human spirit. And we get to see elements of that happen here. When we see Diana's back, now I'm assuming that they did this post her falling to the anti-life, the scarring an icon, like her would end hope. It kind of was funny, though. It kind of fits her current MO post-genocide, the first initial battle.
She's a little beaten down a bit, and... definitely that I took it definitely as, because now she's one of the Furies, you keep them whipped, you keep them beaten down, you keep them kind of like, they're your rabid dogs. You don't treat them nice. You treat them nasty. You treat them mean. You keep antagonizing them just so they have that fury and that rage.
Yeah, and I don't take it that it necessarily has to connect with the genocide story. I just thought it was kind of fitting that she happens to look that way now because she's going through the ringer in her own book.
Now, we do see her lasso there, which makes me wonder, with the lasso and the anti-life equation, is the anti-life equation stronger than the lasso?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting element there at this point. Because there's a whole right now with the way that time is fractured and all that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can be going on at the moment that is just making me question things. But I don't know about the lasso. Obviously, the lasso, she wears it when she goes out too, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it twisted because of her current MO? Can she use it in her current state?
I don't know, because you see her when they're all suiting up. When the Furies are getting ready and suited up, she puts on the mask and she has the lasso on her very clearly.
Right.
So it's like.
And I guess when I say can she use it, does it work in the same way considering she's twisted at the moment? So I don't know. I'm with you. It'd be interesting to see. In the Bloodhaven bunker, we get a glimpse that his minions are truly the lowest form of scum. They would, basically sell out their family to get favor with Darkseid as each tries to one-up the other. And I do like that we see how much of it's driven by cowardice. They know that he would kill them on a whim. They are nothing to him, and they try to cement a usefulness to survive. And I have a weird thought. Is Darkseid trying to turn this world into his new apocalypse? Is that what you're taking this, Jim?
That's what I took it to be. That this was, his new home and his universe, the center of his universe. If you remember, whenever they've talked about the multiverse, this Earth was always the key for all of the Earths, for all of the universes. So I'm seeing it as Darkseid seeing this as a stepping stone to take over everything. So he's got to take this and secure this. And I kind of laugh when he's just, really isn't concerned about the life and whatnot of the minions who've built him the body, who spread out the anti-life equation, because he knows they're all just cannon fodder. They're all expendable, and it's a nothing.
The funny thing is, too, he even crushes their hopes by belittling what they've done as being only what he's willed. Just saying, hey, this happened because I willed it. Nothing you guys did. Let's be clear on this. He sends the Furies out to take care of the remaining free humans. So it's kind of like, at this point, he's like, you guys are ants. That's it. Which, again, fits this whole, he's a very powerful presence, and I really like that. Now, let's be clear. Who saved Alan Scott in the face of Darkseid? Who is way beyond anti-life? The one hero who oozes with awesomeness can't be categorized as A, B, or C list, because when you're that damn good, you can't be pigeonholed. That's right, baby Hawkman. You saw him. He comes out, mace swinging, heads getting bashed. He's not in any category. He's beyond categorization of awesomeness.
So you're not calling Hawkman a B-lister or a C-lister now? Because you did that when we were on
CGS. No. I never said that. I said that he's, and this is why I wanted to wait to address this on our show. For those of you that maybe heard Comic Geek Speak, we did they were very kind, as always, to invite us on for their looking forward to 2009 special. So if you haven't checked that out, Comic Geek Speak, that's one of their current episodes. I don't actually, as of the time we're recording this, I don't know what episode number it is, but it's definitely one of this past week's shows. So check that Comic Geek Speak out, and Jim and I are going to be on there. So I want to thank the guys for inviting us. But we only had a half an hour block, and anytime we get on tangents like this, I didn't want to take up their time because of their focus on their show. So I told you, let's just save it for our show. Let's just clarify. I never said, and you can pull the tape, because it's downloadable. I never said Hawkman was a B-lister. I announced that Hawkman has a new series coming out.
And here's the part before that. You're saying it's great to see these B and C list heroes getting their own series. And then you talked about Hawkman. Any argument I come up with will be edited out.
No, actually, and honestly, what do you mean it'll be edited? What have I ever edited anything you sent out?
All the time. All the time.
Name one thing.
There are too many to mention.
Well, the listeners actually know for sure that you actually aren't on the show. It's some other guy named Dave.
Right, exactly.
I just record this with you, and I plug Dave in the other bits. But being serious about that, one of the things I like about some of the launch series that are coming up is the fact that they are focusing on some of their characters that aren't the Trinity. So it is their B and C list characters. And yes, he does, all kidding aside, he does fall into that category. And he is one of those characters that I'm glad to see getting a series again, because we've lost Manhunter, we've lost Blue Beetle, which were two great series exploring B and C list characters that I've really enjoyed. And I like those characters. And the point we made on Comic Geek Speak was one of the great things about some of those characters is you can do things with them that you can't always do with the Trinity. You can play around with some of their supporting cast. You can play around with their status quo. And that's not a knock on the Trinity characters. I love the iconic status of their supporting cast. And I like that some of those characters need to be in a certain way protected because I want to read about them. But it's always fun to balance that out then with a good B and C lister book, because you can have a little bit of fun in a different way with those characters and really mess with them in a way that you can't always mess with the Trinity. But then it was funny, we even got on the discussion at that point that they're really beating up the Trinity pretty good at the moment. Yeah. So I don't know about that either.
And I tell you, all kidding aside, I got to say, Hawkman, this was a cool part with him. This is where he belongs. He's on the front line. He's swinging hard. And it's one of those things where I believe, this kind of guy, this type of man, and this makes sense to me that he would be there. And also you see other characters like him. You have Black Condor there, who is another just complete, throw down, get nasty kind of guy. So these two together would be a pretty cool combo. But I really liked seeing Bulleteer there. Mm-hmm. Nice little blip of her. In the past in other issues we've seen Frankenstein. So here we got Bulleteer. So it's like, yes.
We see Frankenstein in a big way in this issue as well.
Right.
So it was great because I think every squad that we've seen in the various spots where we've seen them, we've seen heroes from all elements of the DC universe, from the straight traditional high-end heroes, straight on through to the B and C listers, straight on through to people from, like, for example, Magic. In other worlds and things like that have been living on Earth and operating. They're all getting involved and all rallying together to make these balanced out squads that are striking in ways that are unique to their power sets. And that was really great to see that. And it was great to see Carter charging in to help Alan, considering they're both on JSA, that he was not going to let him fall. How hard is it, though? He's bashing Donna Troy, for example. You're friends against friends because of the way that they're... And we saw what happened to Ollie last issue because he didn't jump in there. And actually, at the end of this, I want to talk about something else that I caught on the forums that I completely missed last issue. That is a huge thing that it makes me go, huh? What's going on here? And we'll talk about it at the end because I don't know if you've seen this. Now, I was glad to see this scene with the Super Young team. This sequence cleared up all of my questions from last issue, as it matches much of what our listeners had said. It's Shiloh, and they are using the paint to protect themselves from the anti-life equation. I really dig that this is something handed down through time from Metron of the New Gods. We are finally seeing involvement of the gods in some level, because I totally read this as this was when we got to see in the first issue Metron, sort of handing something to the people of, the first boy. That this has been passed through time, and we're seeing those connections. So it's interesting to me that we're now starting to see glimpses of new god involvement in this world. If gods made iPods that were alive, it's way beyond that. What a cool today explanation for Mother Box.
I know, dude. I was, like, oh, that's kind of cool. Bringing in a little modern twist. They're doing everything with this, just bringing it, bringing it home and whatnot. So, now my question for you, we see the circuit painted on it blocks the anti-life. Now, the Tattoo Man, if you remember from Resist, he had that circuit. Is it the same pattern, or is that something different? Because I was wondering if this blocks the anti-life, if the other one fights, or ends up, can defeat the anti-life.
I guess that's part of my question, too, when I was looking at it, because, I'm glad to see that the face painting is going to be spreading. What happens to someone who's possessed by the anti-life equation if their face was painted? Are we going to see that? Will it reverse it or something like that? I don't know. So, I mean, I guess I had those questions too. I don't know about the Tattooed Man's. I don't know what kind of effects it's going to have. I hope we get to see that. But I guess I have a lot of questions about it too. You and I are kind of in the same place. What's going to happen due to this painting? Will we see it in some way used for the other people or not? Maybe it is just it's a defensive pattern versus an offensive one. I don't know. We'll see. It was, again, just seeing different items, bringing certain elements together via boom tube and time travel, to help out in the situation. So I was glad to see these, like Sonny Sumo and Shiloh now being brought into this whole thing. Calabac and his army of the new Hunger Dogs, I'm guessing. This Tiger Army does add a fantasy element that really works here. Darkseid's son would be a strong general in concept, and I love that the battle for Bloodhaven papers were flying about and around the devastation. Considering that Bloodhaven fell back during Infinite Crisis, it really adds a sense of scale and history to the events currently in the DC Universe. Even if you weren't around reading during those events, you do get the feeling here that there's a story that happened in this area, that there is something more to this tale. And it's amazing for people who weren't reading it back then, this used to be Nightwing's stomping grounds. Nightwing's solo series, when it first started, this was his hometown that he ran through, very similar to what Gotham is. This was actually a darker area of Gotham that he was involved in.
Now, I took it those papers flying around, those were the Resistance newspapers that they were printing.
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I was like, yeah. Because I like seeing the connection to one of, that was Resist, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I like seeing that there's still the connection coming off of that into here.
Oh, yeah. And I'm totally taking that's what those papers are for. What I was saying, when we saw those elements, though, I started thinking back to how this place wound up the way that it is to begin with. Because it was a devastated area before this story.
Yeah, this just added to it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So, I mean, it was one of those things that there is a rich story that actually explains why it got to this point. Calabac's army follows him blindly, like thirsting for the kill. That wind, that roar, like an approaching storm. Dialogue really sets mood for me, and when you get moments like that, it was like, ugh. They just seemed very fierce, and I really liked that. Simulated Stereo pointed out to us that on the double-page spread, the assault team was riding the Metal Men. I completely missed that, but what a great catch.
That was absolutely wonderful. And I'm just sitting there, and now it's funny. Now that I know, I look and I see different parts. I'm like, because we saw the initial, I'm assuming is Lead, who's like the big Humvee, and you see the face now. But even in the other ones, I'm seeing faces, and I'm seeing, different body parts and whatnot going, oh, why didn't I see that before?
I was glad to see Freddie and Adam here representing the Captain Marvel universe. I know we are finally going to get Billy in the JSA along with Adam and Isis and more, but I am also looking forward to Freddie in Robinson's Justice League book. This was time, though, I wanted to see this. I love that we get a mix of big-time players and newer characters here, Frankenstein leading the charge, but we also have people like Mr. America, who I really grew fond of as a concept since that first Justice Society of America arc in this particular run. So it's, just people from all different elements of the DC including the robot from the Creature Commandos currently being seen in Action Comics. And, such a cool line. You have, like, traditional heroes, magic representation, all that.
Well, I gotta say this. I really liked Our Man and Liberty Bill. They're riding in.
Oh, yeah.
He's got that hoorah look on her face. She's manning the controls, and it was just something. Yes, I love seeing Black Adam flying in, but just something about that just really made me feel cool. One, because they are a married couple, and because they're so much in love that they're still together, and that we didn't have another situation like we had with Ollie and Dinah. So I don't know. It's just something feeling together. I'm like, yes.
And you do need those feel-good moments in this. I totally agree with you because, like I said in the beginning, this has been very dark. So I grasp at those things as well. So, and Red Arrow is another character. There's something comforting about seeing him still riding around with Ollie having been captured as well. So we're on the same page there. And I was dying to see this. Finally, some movement for Freddie, Adam, Mary, Talkie Tawny. Look at her. I saw a leering old man in her eyes. Decides inside Mary Marvel. Adam is sensitive to not only the changes they undergo when becoming the Marvels, but seeing behind the exterior. I really liked this reveal. Decides in there. Decides Mary Marvel.
And here's the thing. I agree with you. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That actually explains a little bit more on how far they could turn her so quickly. But here's my other question, though. In the Teen Titans issues, in the Infinity Inc. issues, we saw that one person who's running part of the Dark Side Club, who they physically called Desaad.
We
have Desaad there, but we have Desaad here.
In Final Crisis, the same way we have Granny Goodness in Final Crisis, who was also in those issues that you're talking about. But Granny Goodness did become the Alpha Lantern after appearing in the similar time frame in the DC universe.
But here's the thing: it's a timeline thing, timetable thing. When did Desaad leave the Teen Titans Infinity Inc. person and jump into Mary Marvel? It had to be at the end of Countdown.
Right. I'm taking this as post Countdown too.
Okay.
And actually, I don't want to spoil this. I've seen things recently that lead me to believe that it did take place after Countdown.
Okay.
And I don't want to spoil them now because they have to do with previews, stuff that I've seen in this month's in the upcoming previews. That I saw a cover for a particular comic. Actually, I'll say what comic because that won't spoil anything. I saw a comic cover for JSA, and I will leave it at that. That leads me to believe that is in fact the case.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that. We'll talk after you and I are done recording here, and I'll tell you that.
I'm curious what you're saying there.
And I think anybody who's seen that cover will know what it is. I'm just, for the sake of people who don't want that spoiled, I don't want to go further than that. So, and I think that's enough information, though, for people who say, well, Sean, I kind of want to see what you're talking about. That'll give you enough info to kind of see what I'm talking about. So I'm agreeing with you, Jim, but I'm saying that in Final Crisis, she has been possessed by Desaad.
Okay. And it's funny, because as I was even thinking about the different stuff, like, wait, what do we got? I was immediately coming up with the rationale, and I was even comfortable with the fact that the Teen Titans story ended, at the end of Countdown to Final Crisis, at the end of Countdown. So he was able to jump from one body to the other.
I'm taking Countdown, remember, Countdown was Eclipso. We saw that within Countdown. So...
Right, but no, the end of Countdown... remember when she's her normal self and then Darkseid appears and then corrupts her one last time? Mm-hmm. And that's when we see her, turn again over to becoming Black Mary again and all that stuff.
I'm taking this as after all that.
Okay, you're taking it after that. Okay.
I don't know if I'm right. We'll see.
Yeah, see,
that's the only thing. See, that to me is the only thing that makes sense because of what we're talking about. We've seen Desaad.
Yeah, see, and I was even willing to say that to accept the fact that the Teen Titans stuff happened simultaneously with the end of Countdown. Yeah, so it's.
I'm thinking that corruption made it even easier for Desaad to take over.
Okay.
She's already vulnerable. Let me jump in at this point. I may be wrong, and I'm speculating here, so none of this is set in stone. We haven't seen it explained. I'm saying at this point, I'm a lot more comforted to see that she's gotten more twisted because she's possessed by Desaad. I'll actually be happy if in some way they can show me that it's been Desaad all along. That would be a great explanation. I would love to see that.
Yeah, and if they can come up with it and if they can create it, sure, fine.
I don't think so, though.
And here's the funny thing, and even as I'm saying this, I probably wouldn't even complain too much if they never explain anything beyond that it is Desaad and her now, and never, clearly laid out when he jumped in.
Darkseid took control of Black Mary. That's my thought.
Mm-hmm.
Of at least what any of us who've read Countdown consider to be Black Mary. I'm considering that Desaad took control of Black Mary.
Okay.
That's where my head's at. And I mean, if other people have other evidence towards the other, please go ahead and share it. That's just speculation on my part. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But that's only because of the amount of reading that we're doing and where we've seen Desaad. That's the only thing that makes sense to me at the moment. And there's no reason why would they have to only take control of good guys? We've already seen that they seem to be indiscriminate on who they manipulate.
Yeah, and they manipulate whoever they have to, to get the job done. It's not about, let's corrupt the innocent anymore. It's about, let's win the war. And I can actually see, this is something Desaad would do. He's jumping into a powerhouse here.
Right. That's totally where I take this. Because we even see here that villains are willing to rethink things to work with the heroes because of the situation. Now, Mary gets the upper hand due to Freddy saving her from Adam, and Talkie's ready for a battle with Caliblack, Calabac at this point. I'm really looking forward to seeing Talkie Tawny and Calabac go at it. I don't know what it is about that. It just seems he's so bright and like so out of time. You know, he's a classic Fawcett style character. I want to see one of them lay down and kick butt in this whole thing. I really do. We need that bright character at this point.
Yeah, here's my experience with Talkie isn't that much, and I just got I got some money on Calabac, to be honest, dude. I don't see this guy going 3 rounds with it's tiger versus tiger. No, it's tiger versus kitten.
Except, this is a hero. So what is a hero? And is it because these are classic heroes that you think they're going to fall? I don't know about that. Are we going to see Talkie step up and see something more from Talkie to see what really lies into the heart? I mean, you're talking about somebody who's good, and who's really, so I'm curious to see that battle. And my money is on, we'll have a little bet here. My money's on Talkie.
Okay. It's, here, and the only reason, I believe, he's going to try and he's not going to quit, but I don't see him being able to take him. I see somebody else stepping in and saving his butt. I don't know if he'll definitely be crushed and killed, but I don't see him dropping Calabac.
I could see him die trying to defeat Calabac and winning. We're to the point where we see the end of Talkie. I don't necessarily want to see that, though.
Yeah, I see. If I either see him dying or someone saving him, I don't see him beating Calabac.
I see Talkie winning.
Okay.
Even if he gets injured in the process, I see Talkie winning. I think at this point in this stage, we're in issue 5. I'm guessing issue 6 and 7, we've got to see what's a hero at this point.
Yeah.
We've got to see some definition of that. And I'm looking at Talkie's going to be one of those characters. I think it's going to be one of those moments where we start to see, rallying of heroes and people stepping up to the plate and surprising acts of heroism. And I think we're going to see Talkie do something. That's my thought. I don't know. If we're wrong and there's a storytelling reason why I'm wrong, that's fine. I don't mind it if I'm wrong at that case. I'm just throwing out right now. My speculation is I'm rooting for Talkie. I'm a little Talkie.
Hey, you're a little Talkie. You're a lot Talkie.
I'm a whole lot of Talkie.
Come on, let's be honest here. But you know what? I'll root for Talkie. I don't think he's got a shot, but I'll root for the guy. I root for the underdog.
I'll bet on the underdog, so we'll go there. Our monitor friend here winds up in a cell because the equation doesn't work. And it makes sense that Darkseid would want them dissected to learn what makes them immune. Do you think the people he's in the cell with are the new gods?
Oh, big time.
The one with the cube putting forth the number of the gods, maybe Metron?
Oh, that's definitely, because the cube is also in the chair.
Right.
And we saw him, in Seven Soldiers being, in the chair, a little bit, a little bit out there, if you will. I totally took it that all these are the new gods. The one dude who hands them who hands the monitor the sketching and the drawing, he's kind of like reserved. I took that as like maybe High Father. Maybe that's the High Father in this, and just like, that type of stuff.
Part of me thought Orion just because of the brutish nature of him, but I don't know.
It could be you know what? I wouldn't have an issue with that either.
I'd like to go back and look at the sketchbook.
Yeah.
To see if there's anything in there that might give some clues. Now, here's my questions that I have here. Like, is he going to imagine the new gods? Is he going to bring them back somehow? Because seeing the picture of Ouija Del brings back the memories, but they keep alluding that he somehow has something to do with what's happening in the cell. That he in some way is willing that from the dialogue. I don't know. There was a lot of questions I had out of that dialogue that the monitor, Nix, our buddy, was kind of somehow generating the events that were happening in there. So it was an interesting little segment. I was glad to see finally the cube clicks to number 17. Darkseid's minions are overtaken by a wave of energy. And then we flash to this Libra segment who's ready to execute the calculator. Now, I had a couple of possibilities here. Now, please give me your thoughts on these. I had 2 things I was thinking. First of all, that either A, that he knew it wasn't calculator. He knew it was really Luthor feeding the Resistance the information, but he wanted to break and humiliate him. Luthor's the savant who got around the encryptions. Or B, it was Oracle who got through it all, calculators taking the heat, and Luthor's just upset by witnessing these events. Because there's clearly something going on with Luthor. It's clearly at this point that, Luther is, so I don't know if it's A or B. There's something going on with this guy's head, though, that Luther is not happy about any of this. He's not glad to be there. He's trying to hold on to his wits, very similar to Savannah. But, Libra's clearly trying to deliver a message to this guy that no matter what you think, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, this is the way things are now. And you're going to lead this group, which, Luther says is an honor, I'm sure. And, even implies that, if you act, because he knows Luther's not doing this willingly. Luther's doing this under threat.
Oh, yeah. And I took it that Libra knows it's not the calculator, and the calculator is an expendable person to him. He knows it was Luther all along, and he's going to make Luther do this, just kind of like the further humiliation of this is how powerful I am. I have the great and powerful Lex Luthor doing exactly as I say, even though he doesn't want it.
And I can even offer you Supergirl.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's it.
Which to me is another, you're taking this girl, this young girl and saying, hey, you can have her. Just another slimy slap to the face of Luther. Not that he intended to even really do that. It's just kind of I know I can offer you this, and here you go, you twerp. Really just trying to make Luther feel as small as possible, which to me adds all the more weight as to why Luther would be doing any of this.
Yeah, it's definitely, the mind games, the belittlement of Luther, who is this powerful individual, who's this powerful humanist, if you will, that he has always been about the strength of mankind and the strength of humans over these supreme beings. Now, here he is, one of their minions. He's one of their dogs now, and he's not even with the anti-life equation run. He is just doing their bidding. He's a flunky, and I took it that was part of his upset and his anguish was his realization of just how far he's fallen, which is a really cool way to break a man, especially a man like Luther, by doing this to him.
And considering Luther's belief too, Luther always believes he's right. He believes that his motivations and the things that he's doing are in the right. Luther really believes that he's smarter than everybody else. He sees the bigger picture where other people don't. And in this case, to see humanity sunk to this, to him is the ultimate. In many ways, it's justifying everything he's thought all along. It reinforces Luthor because he's seeing in front of him everything that he's always feared unfolding. Because he feared this was going to be like a Superman kind of thing.
Yeah, but instead of being Superman, it's Darkseid doing it.
Right, but this is Luther's fears coming to life around him. And it's natural that the man would choose to help those who are his enemies and anybody else that he can in order, as sneakily as possible, in order to try and somehow bring this down. So I actually really like that there's that blurry line right now on what is good, what is evil, who's good, who's bad. It's all bets are off in this world because this is just hopeless, a disaster.
Yeah, in the end, there's only really one evil, and that's Darkseid.
Right.
Everybody else is now starting to fight for survival. And how do you fight for survival? You're either allying yourself with the evil or you're fighting against evil. And I think we're going to see something more out of Luther by the end of this. He's going to, make it very clear that he's fighting with the heroes. And I don't know how he's going to play into it. There's something more going on with Luther. And I don't know if he is maybe possessed or he is maybe if somebody else is inside him as well.
Back to the Mary Marvel thing for a quick second. Wait, did you say you thought there was somebody in Luther?
Yeah, maybe.
Like who?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. It's like part of me is wondering if maybe there's something else going on there. Now, this is me reaching. I will fully admit it. But it's just...
You mean like one of the new gods?
Yeah.
Oh. See, I guess I didn't read it that way. I wouldn't be against that if that was the case. And I'm not currently reading it that way, but I mean, I'm throwing out a whole bunch of speculation here too. So I mean, I guess I wouldn't be against it if it happened. Yeah. I don't see that, but
yeah. And here, the sole basis of these comments I'm making are based just solely on a hunch, on just like a little whims in the back of my head. There's I haven't read any evidence that said, see this right here shows that it is. So this could be completely one of those things out of left field that never comes to fruition. And I'm not going to even further defend the position. It's just something that popped in my head. I'm like, what if there's something more to Luther? And maybe, it's one of those things where that's how they're able, maybe he's like the linchpin and doesn't realize it or something. I don't know.
I prefer, though, and if that's the case, fine. I prefer, though, the belief that this is a right in the face, because Luther reacting this way fits Luther to me to a T. This is vintage Luther. He would do this. his entire persona and everything we've learned about Luthor over the years fits this. Stuff we saw when he was president of the United States fits this. You know, in the sense that Luthor really, when the chips are down, would not be okay with this happening to humanity on any level. This would totally go against the grain of who he is and what he's believed all these years. Luther's an example of a person that we term as a villain who does not see himself in that light.
And I'll tell you, I agree with you 100%. And all the evidence that I'm seeing 100% just backs what you said, and that I think is how this story will play out. Mm-hmm. But that was just something that was just nagging in the back of my head. So it's a what if.
Sure. And there's a lot of that going on. I wanted to jump back to Black Mary just for a couple seconds. Do you think the Mary Marvel thing, I mean, we've seen a couple things here that don't jive so well with Countdown. Do you think this is an example of, because Mary was turning in this, they did the Black Mary story, and it's one of those things where Morrison intended for Desaad just to take over Mary Marvel, and it's not fitting so nice because we've seen elements of this in the universe? Or are you taking this as, because, I mean, to me, I'm wondering if that's the reason why we're trying to figure out where Desaad fits in. Because to me, it fits the easiest if we're going to do this the same way Granny Goodness does. Because we saw Granny Goodness in these Dark Side clubs, and we saw where she would have jumped in. Are we seeing Desaad jumping in the same way, and it's just that he jumped into Black Mary?
Yeah.
But maybe Morrison originally intended him to jump into Mary Marvel, and just when they were crafting Countdown, they saw an opportunity to tell a Mary Marvel story where we see her fall and kind of rise up again, but then...
Yeah, then she has to fall again.
Yeah. My personal feeling from what I was talking about before that I saw is that we are going to see a story outside of Final Crisis that deals with Black Mary. And that in Final Crisis, we are going to see how Black Mary became this person. I might be wrong, though. It might be Morrison's intention now to make it that Desaad took over Mary Marvel, and that's what we saw all along. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens here. I'm very curious to see what happens here. So it's interesting. Mm-hmm. With who's inside who?
Yeah. I'm hoping we get a scorecard. You know?
Yeah. So I guess at the moment I'm reading it as it's not so much when Desaad's in there now. At some point in time, he took over Mary Marvel, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. That's why we got the purple hair and the shaved head.
Yeah, we got the freaky look and all that type of stuff. Yeah,
the freaky look has to do with Desaad being in there. So I think that bizarre look is Desaad being in there more than anything else. During the battle, John is still recovering from the events surrounding Hal being taken. In the most recent Batman, we see that they're trying to use Bruce to create a clone army. Are you reading it that Bruce just destroyed them?
Yes.
Or something about Bruce just destroyed them? Is that what you're reading that?
Yeah, I read it, the Batman Psycho Merge killed the clone army. So I think they're holding Batman and they're trying to break him and use his energy, but Batman's just his will was so strong, he killed the clone army. Now, I don't think he physically killed them. I think he was able to fight and resist, and because of that, he fried their programming of this army.
Is that the mental battle then we're seeing him go through? Because if you look at I'm assuming you've read the first issue of Batman post.
Yes, and that's
RIP. We see him going through a mental battle in that. I don't know how we can't talk about that in this because I think it's critical to this particular scene.
Yeah, I took it completely. When they captured him in Final Crisis, they started the mental battle. They started the mental breakdown. They wanted to use Batman's, knowledge, fighting skills, and just who he is to be, the basis, for the next wave of the army. But because Batman is Batman, he was able to resist it. And even in that first issue, we start seeing him resist it, even though they're putting him with story, good story, bad story. They're flip flopping, using some stuff that happened in RIP against him, just trying to break him down.
But he's questioning those events in his head, and we see that go through. So I guess we probably haven't seen this yet. That's something we're going to see. I'm guessing in the second part of that, because we haven't seen the second issue of that. Is that how you're reading this?
That's how completely I'm reading it. Okay. We'll get the rest of the story in that, and we'll see. Maybe we'll even see Batman destroying the army and Batman fighting out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen here, because that was, to me, the whole thing. As I was running through this, I'm like, okay, we haven't seen the end of that yet. We're leading to that. We've seen enough of it that was totally what I was thinking at the time. So I was totally confident. I'm like, okay, you kind of got to read those 2 issues of Batman to understand more of that, or just move on and not really care. I mean, for people that aren't reading
Yeah.
Batman, I'm just kind of saying, I'm like, if you want to know
Yeah,
more of
and-
those details, they are being fleshed out right now in Batman.
And I think there's going to be, in maybe in issue 6, we'll see the Batman stuff. We'll see him actually maybe even defeating it, and in the Batman title will be the before he actually defeats it.
Now,
It'll be the build up to it, and it's really like a 3-part story, if you will. 2 of them are in Batman. 3rd part is in issue 6.
Now, see, here's the part for me. I would have liked to have seen a little editorial bubble right there saying, read these 2 issues of Batman if you want to know more about this.
Yeah.
And here, we're in a catch-22 because people tend to complain and say, well, I've got to buy that then. And my attitude is this. No, you don't. You have to buy that if you want to know that part. And it's a universe, so those stories are there. But my thinking is this. As a reader, if you want to know, if you read that in your sketch, you're like, I really want to know what happened there. At least then there's a finger pointing you in the direction of the 2 issues you need to read in order to understand that segment.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. I think that needs to be there. And I think, growing up, there were those were all over the place. I didn't pick up everything when I saw one of those, but it was nice to know that, okay, I'm scratching my head at the moment. There is a tale that tells that something did go on. So it's not weird that reference doesn't have a lot of background to it. And it's just a matter of budget-wise, if that doesn't fit into your budget, you just kind of say, okay, there was a story that's being told in Batman right now that explains that more. I can just move on and continue reading Final Crisis, and that's, if I want to know that, I'll go pick up those issues. If otherwise, I'll know what's relevant to this particular story and move on. I think those are important. I think they're important in comics, and I'd like to see those come back more often.
I agree with you, and 100%, but I don't think we're going to see those come back because there are too many people out there who take it exactly how, that if they put it in there, this is just them being greedy, trying to get me to buy this other stuff. They should tell the story in this comic, not in these 2 comics. And I don't.
To me, it's a shared universe, and when you're going to have characters that come together in a storyline, there's going to be some events that they're going to reference that happen in other books, and I think it's helpful for the reader who wants to know where to look. And I think we as fans have just got to be a little more patient with that, and I do think there's a certain responsibility to let people know that, hey, if you want the whole story, go read this. I'm picking up all the tie-ins because I want the full Final Crisis story. And I think that there are other people who maybe aren't reading Batman right now that might say, well, I might pick up these 2 issues of Batman if I knew that they tied into Final Crisis. Just kind of my thought. It's not, it's not a big thing. I'm not on my high horse about it. It's not something I'm pissed about or anything. But I just think it's something worth noting because I think you and I are both talking about something here that I think you really need to read Batman to understand. And I just think it's important. To me, I think you're going to get some extra sales, I think, on Batman because people are going to want to read it. So, I mean, obviously they're not putting it there because they don't want people to think they're doing it for sales. But to me, everything should be about the reading experience. And you're going to get some people that complain about, oh my gosh, I got to buy a couple issues. True. But to me, those 2 issues enhance that reading experience at this moment. So I think the reader should know that if they want to get that reading experience enhanced, this is where they should go. And I think you should always lean towards improving the reading experience versus worrying about people thinking it's a business. Yeah, sure, they're going to want to point you to things that you might read that, and I don't have a problem with that. I have no problem with looking at the comic company as a business. I like the artistic form. That's why I'm always pro creators. I love, hearing, and this is one of the reasons why we do this show is because we want to celebrate the creators. But I'm also a realist. This is a company, and they're going to point you to those things. I think in that particular case, I'd like to see more of those around. It's not just something I'm pointing at Final Crisis, and it's not something I'm just pointing at in DC. I don't think we see a lot of this around comics in general now because of just what we're discussing here, and I think we need to kind of get away from that and just kind of, as fans realize it's a business, and please give us checklists, start pointing us in the right direction, so that way we're reading the things we need to. But I'll tell you right now, we'll be the editorial balloon in this case. And I don't know if editorial is even the right place to blame this, so please, forgive me on that end. But we'll be that, advocate in this case and say, if you want to know more about that segment, read the 2 issues of Batman. I know it's a little kind of mini rant, but it was just something that I noticed that I was kind of like, well, this would have been nice here. Mm-hmm. Just a thought. Anyway, did Darkseid just kill his minions? Is that what was, I mean, with the development of him, this just makes sense. We need to see a god set apart from normal humans. This sense of power from him, sense of something more in his own confidence. It fits the role of an evil god to me. And I was just sitting here like, wow, this so totally, fits him at this point. He's very intimidating because of this event.
Yeah, he just pulled all the energy from them and put it into himself, kind of.
Yeah.
That's how just basically, sucking dry. Thanks a lot, buddies.
But like Gordon Godfrey, Gordon Good, whatever we call him, I mean, that's pretty, actually the scientists even were characters that have been around for quite some time. He just kind of wiped. Now, do you take it that these characters could appear again?
No, actually, I don't think that.
Could he bring them back?
Gone. What?
Could he bring them back?
Maybe, but see, I'm taking it that we're not seeing the new gods, we're seeing the new god. Darkseid wants all the power and nobody else. I think this is all about him. This isn't about bringing back the new gods. This isn't about, the fifth world is him. He is it. And that's what he wants, is how I'm reading this.
He's definitely got look at me issues. What really drew me to Supergirl's Mary Marvel battle was the reaction of those watching. The reaction in awe of the power behind them. We even see Frankenstein looking back and just talking about how just incredible that event was, because two very powerful beings come to Earth. And I like how Mary's, even being, Supergirl's trying to plead with her. We can talk about this, not realizing that she's possessed by Desaad at this.
Yeah, and I hope we see more of the fight.
Oh, yeah, I think it's almost a guarantee, right?
I'm hoping, because, this is the fight I was really looking forward to.
Well, that's got to be the thing from the board, girl fight. There's got to be more to it than that. This is just the opening salvo. Issue 6 has got to be girl fight, right?
I'm hoping. I'm really hoping.
Otherwise, it's going to be a very lame girl fight.
I know. I'm like, come on. That's not a girl fight. That's more of a, a scuffle.
Yeah. Hal and the troops arrive on Earth, and we see them slip through this time flux to bring some backup for John. And I'm hoping we see something major out of them. Their willpower withstanding Darkseid, or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or them somehow getting tied in with the others and realizing that there is this symbol that can protect them. The president's bunker is about to be taken, and the look of despair. I couldn't tell if the gun was to protect himself or to end it all because of what's happening. Imagine under your presidency the world falls. Look at the climate of our current president, for example. His approval rating is down due to feelings about the war, then the gas prices, now the economy. Now, wherever you stand with regards to him, if you're pro him or anti him, doesn't matter. The overall perception is low right now, and that's something we can't argue with. It's just something that polls seem to show at the moment. Imagine being this president. We've already got what's going on with ours. This guy is taking over the entire planet.
Yeah.
The economy seems like kind of a minor issue in light of all this.
Yeah, all of your subjects are slaves.
Yeah.
They're completely been taken over. They have no longer free will. They are minions to this megalomaniac, godlike, powerful, evil being. Yeah, I'm going to say that's a failed presidency.
Yeah. There's no reason to do a State of the Union address. There's no union.
State of the Union. It's really bad.
Yes. I mean, I ate this up because it seemed very timely with what's going on now to see that one panel shot of the president just kind of fit the climate of today to see somebody so dejected at this point. So it was just kind of an interesting contrast. Darkseid's final fall, I'm guessing, is beginning here. John sees it as Calculator's about to be hanged, which is what I took that to be. We see it in the sky.
Yeah.
He's rallying 3 billion under anti-life, promising the death of their souls in the hell he is making, his new apocalypse. They agree to crawl, beg, and die for Darkseid. Now, Jim, in this holiday season, what do you get for the cruel evil god who has everything? I think a box of assorted holiday chocolates and different kinds of cocoa would go nice for those cozy nights of destroying souls. I long to see those times where Darkseid is off duty. He's in his fluffy robe, curled up in his armchair. He just seems like that kind of fella. Tough on the outside, but a pussycat when you cut through all that and see the misunderstood charming man underneath. It's just
I see him with a pipe. I see him with
you do?
A little pipe, maybe
very Norman Rockwell. Yeah, it's one of those. Just this whole thing. I was just kind of like, oh my God, is he a depressing person? How not to win friends and influence people. Well, he's got the influencing part down. He's not making any friends, though.
Yeah, dude, this was just one of those creepy, Night of the Living Dead, zombies, possessed beings. It's with 3 billion hands. It's with 6 billion eyes. I was like, oh, dang.
Wait,
he's got some power here.
What playground bully was Morrison beat up with as a kid that he's modeling this guy after?
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, boy, what happened to this guy in his childhood that he's got this point of reference? His concept of evil, my definition of evil has completely changed in this series. We see Nyx finally back in monitor mode, surveying the situation. Finally, a major source of power to build and coordinate the resistance in this case. Into Oblivion's a fitting title for this. Now, here's a dilemma that I was talking about in the beginning, and I forget who it was in the forum, so please, I apologize at the moment, and I think they said they got it from elsewhere. I'm not 100% sure. But in issue 4, there's an hourglass-style trophy. Inside it, Martian Manhunter, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, a Green Lantern who kind of looks a little bit like Abin Sur, but I'm not 100% sure, and a couple of other characters all trying to break out. Seeing that, how did they get there? Who are these heroes? It's inside the Hall of Justice during the Ala Queen segment, and I saw it on the forums. I'm not taking any credit for it, but it is something that outside of all this, I haven't seen any hints yet as to what's going on with them. The only thing I'll remember is in an interview Morrison said that we're going to see Batman, but it's not the Batman we saw in R.I.P. Is it this guy? Is that the same Batman? Is it a different Batman? Did you see this picture that I'm talking about?
No.
Do you have issue 4 handy?
I'd have to find it, so. But as soon as we're done, I'm going to
look at issue 4, and we'll actually talk about, if you want to follow up with this, if you got any more thoughts on it, next episode.
Right.
And, I mean, dude, they're alive in there. So my question is it the same ones, first of all? And if it is, who is protecting them? Who is doing this? Is it the New Gods? Is there something that we don't know that's going on? Is it somebody else? Is it the Monitors? Who is saving these heroes? If it's the same ones. If it's the same one. Are doppelgangers being put in their place? What's going on? And is this how we're going to get out of this? That it isn't actually those heroes going through some of these things? I don't know. And that's just, I'm trying to get my head around it at the moment. So I'm not saying any of that is actually what is happening, but they're clearly inside that if you look at that issue. So what is going on with them? And like right now, I'm having trouble figuring out how that fits in to what's going on at the moment. But it's because of the fact that I completely missed it when we were talking about last issue, and it was on the forum. I thought it was worth noting for this particular discussion that is there, and it's a weird wild card.
Yeah, I gotta see this image now. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, they're very small. They look, like little people inside the thing, but they're alive. They're clearly banging on it, trying to get out. So, and that's the visual there is them banging on it, trying to get out. So if anybody missed this in issue 4, I did. So I'm not taking credit for this, but it's an interesting wild card that is making me wonder, what don't we know? There's something we don't know right now that I'm waiting to play out. Because, I mean, that can't be a red herring.
No, it's got to be something.
Right. So it's an interesting little art thing that obviously it was meant to be there as kind of a hidden thing, but later we go, oh my gosh, So I don't know.
Yeah, I want to read that now. I gotta find that issue.
And does it have to do with, are the Flashes doing something, or I don't know. That was another possibility. I was thinking, well, maybe the Flashes are doing something, and they have something to do with all this. I don't know. Maybe they're building their own little resistance and putting them in a little glass. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards it might be New God based, or Monitor based, but I don't know. So it's interesting. What did you think of this issue?
Dude, I liked it. I'm liking all the Final Crisis stuff. It answers some questions, leaves some more open. It fleshes out the story. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to the next issue. There's still, stuff I want to know about. There's things I'm just like, okay, I want to see the girl fight. I want to see, what Nyx is going to be able to do. I want to see how the Green Lanterns, influence are going to affect the fight. This war isn't over. Evil's saying they've won, but they truly haven't won yet. As long as there's one hero fighting, it ain't over yet. So,
right. And I think Darkseid knows that. That's why he's trying to finish this.
Yeah.
His exact term there is, let's finish this. That's why he's causing the uprising. He's not sitting back saying, I've won. He knows that there's things to squash, and he's still trying to do that. So it really is, he's trying to make everybody else think that he's won, to keep hope down and all that. But he's well aware that there is still more threat to be taken out. Mm-hmm. And his goal is to stomp out every possible form of resistance, which fits. And I've really been enjoying the mystery of all this. I agree with you. There's questions. I do think my Mary Marvel questions right now may be partially due to Countdown, some of them. Yeah. I don't know, though, but I've come to expect a little bit of that. It doesn't really bug me anymore as much as it did in the first issue. But I do think that's part of it. I do think the simple explanation is right now she's possessed by Desaad. That explains her current behavior. And anything else I think we're going to get explained outside of this. Maybe. And I may be totally wrong. It may wrap up all neatly when we get the explanation, because the explanation is not delivered here. We're just given the hint we get from Adam. So I think that that's why I guess in my eyes that girl fight is going to be something more next issue, because I don't think Adam's going to throw out something like that in this book and not have it be something that we see. Remember what happened with the Granny Goodness hidden thing? We slowly had that revealed. And I think this is very similar. We're going to slowly have Desaad revealed here the same way we had Granny Goodness revealed. And it's an opportunity for them, the heroes, to win. To beat Mary the same way that they Desaad the same way that they beat Granny Goodness. I think that's some of what I think maybe we're going to see Supergirl do that. I don't know. That's just my speculation. Very, very interesting story. It is
definitely.
I jumped to this.
And our next review will be Final Crisis Revelations number 4. The writer is Greg Rucka, penciler Philip Tan, inker Jonathan Glapion, Galapian, colors by Nee Rufino, letterer John J. Hill, and the covers by Tan, Galapio, and Rufino. The assistant editor was Adam Schlagman, and the editor was Eddie Berganza. The things I believe in, I can count on one hand. The things I don't...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off on that. It's another, we were just talking about in Final Crisis, the sliver cover versus the regular cover. And I've got to say this, I love the artwork in the sliver covers. Like this one's got the Philip Tan Huntress in there, which he really does. I love the Huntress as a character. I've loved her in Nightwing. They did Nightwing with Nightwing Huntress. They did the Question Huntress. Then, Birds of Prey, obviously. She's been a wonderful character in there. She's going to be in the Outsiders series now. We were wondering where she was going to appear next. And actually, when we were talking on Comic Geek Speak, we speculated maybe she'd be in Rucka's book. But it looks like she's going to be part of the new Outsiders team under Peter Tomasi, which to me has me really excited because I just want to see her somewhere because she's a character that I'm enjoying reading monthly. So I'm thrilled to see where she's going to wind up. But then we've got the full-blown cover, also by Philip Tan, featuring arcane version of Vandal Savage. And is that a vicious-looking cover or what? I don't know. Which cover did you get out of this one?
I got the sliver cover.
Okay. This is one, tell you how much I'm liking Philip Tan's artwork. I got through DCBS the full-blown Vandal Savage cover. Then I went to my local shop and got the sliver cover, which is insane because I went in for a sliver. I went and bought another issue. But it's great art, so I don't feel cheated or anything like that. But it's a $4.99 or $3.99 sliver, and I'm glad that I have it because I really do. I wish I had pre-ordered it. I had from DCBS had sent me the sliver cover, but I couldn't wait, and I had to have it on Wednesday. And by time I got to my local shop, only thing left was the sliver. So I have 2 copies of the sliver cover. Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had 2 copies of the other. We could just trade. We need to communicate more with these kind of things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know you were going into Renee's inner dialogue, and it really is great inner dialogue. So please continue. And I'm sorry, I thought the covers were worth noting.
Yeah. The things I believe in, I can count on one hand. The things I don't can fill a book. I believe in love and hate. I believe in good and evil. I believe in friendship. And right now, at this moment, I don't believe in God. And that really was a whoa opening.
And she even continues to say things like, at least no God who would allow this to happen. Mm-hmm. And there are, that's one of those moments where it really would in the midst of all this. And you see, like, people do this all the time, people who have strong faith, when members of the family die, or when a member of the family dies who is a good person. You'll hear people say things like, why would God take this person when there's all these nasty people in the world doing horrible things? I've heard my own family make comments like that, where people will question their faith in the face of horrible things that happen to them, whether it's illness or death or whatever when it goes on. This rang so true to what people normally do. It's a very gut reaction where things that don't make sense, violence that doesn't make sense, horrible events that don't make sense, we try to say, if you're looking out for me, what's going on?
Yeah. And,
yo, knock, knock.
and just it has this really powerful inner dialogues going on. We had these great visuals that I was just like, oh my God. As the Kane / Vandal Savage, whoever and whatever he is, rips out the spirit, the soul of the Spectre and enslaves it using the Spear of Destiny. But it's not just that visual. If you start looking at the fine details, like they have the one close-up of Vandal Savage's face, but it's not his full face. It's just the bottom part. It's just the sadistic grin on his face. And then they show the close-up on the Spectre's eyes, kind of, lost and just, defeated. There's if you look in there, you see these skull faces kind of screaming out. There's no power, no energy behind it. It's like he is defeated. And I was just like, oh man, this is some cool stuff.
Almost missing a part of himself. You see this character who, that's the part where I was just blown away at this point and seeing that. So it was, and just to see Mercy looking on, I'm so sorry, and how they feel so small to these new gods that she keeps referring to. That's the part that really works for me. It really is just a very horrifying bit.
Yeah, this issue has shown us some really cool stuff about the post-anti-life equation world that's going on, but it's also dealt so heavily into faith and God and just inner strength, inner turmoil, what they can do, what people can't do, and it just I was like, wow, it's there's like so many layers to this that as I was reading through this, I kept rereading it just because I wanted such a deep understanding of it. On the surface, I read this story, I loved it. I was like, oh, this is cool. But I'm like, I was sitting there saying, there's more to it. And I kept rereading it and wanting to get more. And every time I'm reading through it, I'm seeing little different stuff. I'm getting like a different vibe and emotion from it. This was one of those read-throughs, not just to understand because I was confused, read through for the pure enjoyment of the title. And it's something that every time I read it, I was like, yeah, oh, man, this is the beginning. This is it. This is the beginning, I was like, oh.
I got to be honest with you. I almost enjoyed this issue more than the Final Crisis issue. Just story-wise and visually. And that's not an insult to the Final Crisis issue. It's a compliment to this issue. I just think the writing on this is really smart. I'm really enjoying this. My only question, and we brought this up, we were talking with Simulated Stereo, and he had an interesting answer for it, because I just said time placement-wise, I'm having a little trouble with this, with the fact that we see Batwoman as a female Fury, we see Renee with Shade or Checkmate, or that hybrid thing that's going on over there at the moment. And when does this take place? Does it take place after all that? It has to be, or to a certain extent, it's got to be elements of it before all that. But he said with time influx, all bets are off with that. Or is this something...
It could be taking place at the same time, or...
Right. It would almost have to be before that if Batwoman is a female Fury already. Right. If you're trying to put it in time-wise.
Now, here's the thing I just remembered. The difference when they had that gap between Final Crisis and it was 3 and 4, right? Yeah, they had that month off between Final Crisis 3 and 4.
There?
That's when I think this takes place.
Okay.
I think the whole Revelation story takes place in that 2-week or 1-week period that happened in the DC universe.
I really like that.
Yeah, this is the build-up of the issue 4, issue 5, Final Crisis world that is so defeated by the anti-life, especially the ending of this issue. I'm like, oh man, this is where the true infestation happens. Like, wow.
So you think this is wrapping up in time, that we're going to see the resolution of this have an effect on the main Final Crisis series then?
Well,
because you got to think to a certain extent the Spectre's got to step up, right?
I think my guess is 5. We're going to see either the Spectre, win and or come back, or Renee, kind of step up a little bit. I got a couple theories on some stuff that I think are going to happen, but I'm not sure the end of this issue is going to be too positive for the heroes. I don't think it's going to end as, good for everybody. I think it's still going to have evil winning, but it's going to be the open doorway that in Final Crisis will lead, to the victory.
Right, and we see that it would make sense then that we see Renee after this being in that position where she would consider joining a team like Shade or something like that.
Right.
That would make sense to me. All right, actually, I really like your answer. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. So I just it was worth mentioning and pointing out because it was something when I was reading it. I thoroughly enjoyed the issue. I was just wondering on time placement. That's again where it'd be nice, just a little editor note. This all takes place before.
Yeah.
It's one of those, and it's a little minor thing because if by the end I can figure it out myself, I don't really care. But I think I'm under the theory that not everybody reads all the stuff that you and I do. Mm-hmm. So I think it is helpful for a reader maybe who's reading Revelations because of Greg Rucka, who maybe isn't reading all of the Final Crisis stuff. It kind of gives them a little roadmap. But these are minor things. It's just but I just think it's worth noting why I like editor's notes so much and where I think they're helpful. They're helpful for people who want to know what to read if they want more info or where things kind of fall in time placement. But with what you're saying, you would easily find out by the end of this where it fits in anyway. So right. It's kind of a moot point. If you're picking up Revelations, you're obviously not picking up one issue of it. And especially if you're hearing this discussion and you're joining us and you read issue 4, you're obviously already entrenched in this whole thing and you're going to read issue 5. So it's kind of a moot point. But it was part of my reading experience. This issue, I've got to say, it's really, this series is giving Final Crisis, the main book, a run for its money in quality. And I think, I want to say it's definitely the writing, because I really am a big fan of Rucka's writing in general, but it's also this artwork. They were talking about at the DC Nation panels about how this is some of the most gorgeous artwork. And it really is impressive looking artwork. I mean, there isn't a bad panel in this thing.
If you remember from when we did our All-Star Batman and Robin, I said I picked up that just solely for Jim Lee's artwork because I was blown away with it. Mm-hmm. Revelations artwork alone, it's worth the money for me. Just some of these pages, especially these full-page spread. We got this one where Vandal Savage has Spectre kneeling on him. He's like, "Yes, Master," all defeated, and he's just at the evil glare. You look over his shoulder. It's like the world is completely destroyed, and there's just like death and destruction, and it just looks like something just out of hell.
The crowd on the right-hand side all cheering for this and egging it on. But then over on the left, even though you've got this blank faceless, you can almost see in the eyes the look of shock, and Mercy in the background, the look of like terror, horror on her face that this is happening in front of her. Keep in mind, she's another angel. She's similar to the Spectre in nature. And that's where, the artwork really pays.
And you want to know one of the coolest scenes I saw, and I didn't see this until it was like maybe my third or fourth read-through. Mm-hmm. If you're looking on that full-page spread that has Vandal Savage with the Spectre kneeling down, right. Look at the cheering crowd, and then just slowly go up. You'll see a shadowy figure that we're about to see later on.
Oh, the very, very cool. You know what, dude? I've got to be totally honest with you. Until you just pointed it out right now, I did not see that. And wow, is that a neat little art tidbit. Dude, very good catch. I totally did not catch that before, and you just made me 100% geek out even more to a scene that I already enjoyed.
Yeah, and I tell you, and I literally, that was like on my fourth read-through that I saw that. Because I was focusing on Mercy, I was focusing on the bad guys, I was focusing on Vandal, like, and then just, I happened to be, I was looking at it from a distance, and that's when I saw it. I'm like, oh, my God, there's Huntress. Outstanding.
Yeah, again, just further reason to go back through and reread your books and reread your books and reread your books just to catch little tiny things like that. It's so worth it.
Yeah, now, I got to tell you, I'm loving loving just Renee's writing in this. Just the way she is so completely outgunned in this thing, but she still doesn't, she still cops an attitude with the dude. She even provokes him and, is kind of like, yeah, talk. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
But even that, this is in the midst of him treating Spectre like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Better. That's a good dog. Heal. And now you. You are truly radiant. What do I do with you? Take you for a bed warmer, perhaps? This is an angel of God. He's trying to corrupt an angel of God, God's mercy at this point, spitting in God's face, which totally fits, this character of Cain that they're creating and how it fits thematically. It's funny how they're addressing the various forms of religion in the DC universe, either in Final Crisis or into the outside titles, or, for example, for Wonder Woman, we're seeing kind of echoes of this in Gale's title, in what she's doing over there with her gods. And it's interesting just to see how the Dark Side event does affect these other religious, deities or whatever you want to call them at that point. So it's cool. I like this stuff.
Now, another thing that it's kind of feeding some of my ideas I have on how this is going to turn up. When, Cain is belittling everyone, one of the things he's belittling on the Faceless One is that she's also defied him. The destiny was for her to put the spear in his hands, not the one sister from the Blood Cult. And I'm wondering if that's going to lead to the beginning of the end of this. If that is the fact that she didn't actually put it in his hands, so this truly isn't the truly prophesized way that it says that evil will win in this battle. That something more has to happen with Renee getting her hands on the spear.
Well, does that have to do with how also she survives? Because he blasts her full force, and she continues to survive. How does that happen?
And I like the fact that it's like, how'd you do that? Like, I don't know either. It's many things she doesn't know.
Right, but that, again, what you're hinting on right there, there's something we don't know that I'm curious to see how that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then, of course, as he's getting ready to, slice her and dice her with the spear because he could still cut, that's when we see Hunter swoop in with, the crossbow bolts, just impaling him in the head, but they have absolutely no effect on him. And I like the fact that she went for the kill shots. She went for the headshot. She either recognized that there was so much power going on that a headshot wouldn't kill him, or she said, you know what, no kill rule, out the window now.
That fits the Huntress, though.
Yeah.
That fits the Huntress that we know. Yes, she's evolved from that, and we've seen that evolution, but I can truly believe that the Huntress, in the face of this type of situation, seeing what's going on around with, you remember this point in time, Anti-Life's kicked in full scope, so she is witnessing all of this going on around her, trying to sneak around and avoid all this, and sees an opportunity to save Renee. At that moment, she has to know, if I don't take this guy down, I may kill him, but it's worth the risk to save a life. It does fit her character. It really does fit the character of the Huntress, that she would cross that line if needed. There's few occasions where I'd be okay with her doing that. This is one.
Yeah, I'm definitely no problem whatsoever with her doing that. I'm one of those, I don't like heroes killing, but it's justifiable. 100% in this just because of the mega levels. And I can even...
And dealing with the supernatural.
Yeah. And I can even accept in her head that she's thinking this isn't actually going to kill him. This is just going to distract him and buy, Renee a little bit of time.
And I would buy into her thinking that too. So I guess that's why in this case that I'm okay with her doing that. Because we saw a lot of growth with her in Birds of Prey as far as, her violence levels and the way she handles things and situations like that. So I don't want to see that undone. But I do think in certain extreme situations like this, you can accept that she is going to go a little bit more extreme to handle the situation. And I actually prefer your explanation to mine. That she is in her head justifying that, okay, you see what he's carrying around and the kind of power levels this guy's packing. This isn't going to kill him, but it may be a distraction.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing with Red Arrow and Ollie do that with, when we were talking Trinity.
Right.
Red Arrow was firing arrows at convicts, which did nothing.
Why are we even having this debate? She shot an immortal.
Right. I know.
Forget the fact that he's possessed by Cain right now. we're overthinking this. It's Vandal Savage.
Yeah, he is immortal.
So even if she flew in and didn't think he was possessed by anything, she still thinks she's shooting Vandal Savage in the eye. She didn't try to kill anybody.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, it's totally a justification. I'm totally sitting there thinking to myself, like, this is the stupidest debate we've probably ever had. She's trying to do this to an immortal. No, I'm not even saying it about you. I'm saying it about I feel like a dork right now because it's Vandal Savage.
I think it is. It's the geek moment where we're getting sucked in and we're looking deeper and looking for more answers and more information than what's actually on there. We're overthinking it. I think
shooting him through the eye would not kill Vandal Savage.
Right.
Right. So it matters. It doesn't matter if she chopped. I think chop his head off. Maybe that would do the trick. But that's certainly not going to kill Vandal Savage. He'll wear a patch probably.
Okay. And now, these moments with Mercy, because Mercy basically puts up a power barrier, they retreat back to the church and regroup. These were moments when I really had to just reread this stuff a couple times. And once again, it's not confusion. It was more of, every time I read it, I felt I was getting a little bit deeper into it. I was understanding Mercy a little bit more. I was definitely understanding Renee and Huntress, where they were coming from this. And these were some not only just cool moments about talking about Spectre, talking about the Spear of Destiny, talking about Mercy a little bit. There's some parts in here that filled in where this took place for me.
Well, also though, and let's go to that in a second. When you're talking about the fact that talking about Mercy and all that, it's fitting that it's Huntress talking to her. Huntress, who wears the cross around the neck, her religious background, things like that, to be faced now with the fact that physically in front of her is a real angel. And this is her religion.
Mm-hmm.
Very much from her religion, God's angel of vengeance is the Spectre. In this case now, this is the angel of mercy, having to be faced with these things. Because, I mean, we all go off, you and I are very similar religion. We go off of the fact that, we don't physically see these things.
Yeah.
That we're going off on faith. And, I mean, that's, a lot of that, it's subject to interpretation, what that even looks like. To be faced with that in front of you, how surreal would that be? You know what I mean? I mean,
and I like how cool that, Huntress is like basically telling Renee, hey, back off, show a little respect here. And Renee she's beyond the in awe point. If you remember when Mercy first showed up, she was like in awe over everything going on. She's now beyond that. She's now to the point where she's still really pissed off at God, that God is letting this happen to her friend, Christmas, who's letting this happen to the world. Where is God? Why are you doing this? And it's cool seeing the two different characters who are both very similar in personality and style, but also very different in how they're looking at this circumstance.
And the question questions things too.
Yeah,
she's in the face. She is getting to the root of it. She wants to get to the bottom of it all. It kind of fits her, and she actually had to go underground, in order to get to this point. So for her, there is no. And it's funny, she went through a horrible tragedy in her life, Renee, and had to dig her way out of it, but it didn't do it finding religion. In the case of the Huntress went through a whole bunch of stuff, and religion was part of what, she went with. She constantly was apologizing, to her religion for who she was, and she'd wear the cross and things like that. It was they have two very, very different MOs, so the reactions are very natural to their backgrounds and their characters. It's nice background research into the two. Like, I read that both were reacting very much naturally to, Huntress would have a different level of respect towards all of this in the eyes of the situation.
Yeah, and there was even still, though, some little bit of comical moments that they were using her for. Like when Renee is basically giving Mercy the business, she's like, maybe not shouting at the angel would be a good idea right now. Just a little comical moment. Didn't take away from any of the seriousness or the action and adventure, the boom power behind it, but I kind of like seeing that because that's, a little bit of Birds of Prey Huntress, a little bit of, that kind of, okay, we're in an extreme situation, maybe a little levity to calm things down again.
Well, but here's the difference, though. The Huntress that I know, too, is usually the one that would be yelling at people. She usually is the intimidation point. But in this case, because of the situation and what she's being faced with, it would make sense that normally she would take a back step. But we even see that when Renee's in her face, she's right back at her and shuts her down very quick.
Yeah, now, the cool moment came from Renee when she starts kind of piecing everything together. She's like sitting there and she's like, wait, the spear didn't hurt me. What did Cain say? He said, I was destined to put it in hands. It's starting to make sense. And she's starting to kind of piece the whole thing together. She's starting to see how she was supposed to fit into this world and maybe even come up with a plan that could, lead into a victory. And like always, she is the question. So she's going to start asking questions. And she's basically stops her arguments, stops her fighting with Huntress, even turns her back to her and starts going to Destiny, hey, tell me about the spear. What's more about the spear? And we start to learn, and once again, it's cool, question stuff where she is questioning stuff. She's the detective. She's the investigator. She is figuring out what is going on and maybe how can we use this to our advantage.
Yeah, this segment I totally ate up. It's especially seeing Crispus on the floor in the background, the dead body of Crispus on the floor in the background. It made me wonder, like, I'm guessing that we're going to see these two reunited at some point, but what is it going to take to get to that? And how is Crispus going to react? Because, the question is, maybe, does Crispus want that? And, is there going to be a part where we see them talking to Crispus direct and making Crispus see that he needs to let go of his own issues and to accept his role as the Spectre in order to deal with all this?
I don't know. I'm hoping we get that. I'm hoping we get that moment where Crispus does say, this is what I have to do. This is, part of who I am. And because we're right now seeing, Renee really accept being the question. We're seeing there's no doubt in her mind. She is the question, and it's something she wants to do. And I want to see that moment of Crispus saying, yes, this is my purpose. This is what I'm needing. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to get in the next issue, but I don't know. I think we're still going to have some questions left open with the Spectre and with Crispus when this is all said and done.
Now, here's my question. As we're seeing this part with Hitler and the Spear of Destiny and showing the history of it, did you take this to be the original Earth 2 heroes? Because we see Superman battling the original Atom.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's the original Liberty Bell against the original Wonder Woman. Is that how you're taking this? I don't know. It's interesting.
Actually, I was a little confused on that because we've seen the stories where Hitler used the Spear of Destiny, and that's why the heroes had to stay out of World War II, and then we've seen stories where they didn't.
But Clark,
now, that's what I wanted to know from you. What Earth did we see that with Hitler using the Spear of Destiny?
Well, the original concept of the multiverse, and I'm just going out on a limb here, I don't know. The original concept of the multiverse was the JSA heroes, the original heroes, and the original Superman and the original Batman that were alive during the golden age of comics. The way to explain that they were still, they had stories that were still continuing and they got married and moved on with families and that type of thing, was that they were on Earth 2, a different Earth that paralleled ours. Their continuity was a little bit, had been around, their superheroes had been around longer than ours. They were older than our heroes, and that was why, we could see them in this kind of age. They were around during World War II. It was a way to explain why are we still reading Superman and Batman if they were around, in the early age of comics. And how do we explain that they still look the age that they do? Well, the idea was that there was Earth 1 and Earth 2, and, Earth 1 is our current Earth that we were currently reading in comics, and that those heroes had gone on living on Earth 2, and those stories did happen, they just happened on another Earth. So that's where the multiverse came from, and it was a cool solution because people who had been reading those heroes for the longest time feel like those stories could still matter, and you could actually still see those heroes from time to time. We did have the two Supermen teaming up, and, when they did those Crisis on Multiple Earths crossovers, it was a cool concept because they were still there. So I liked that. So in this case, I'm guessing that's what this would be. And when the multiverse then combined during the original Crisis, it would make sense that elements like, weapons or, a spear from God would still be around in our time.
Yeah, but that's the thing I was wondering. Are we seeing that this Earth was, not our Earth? Because
Well, no,
our
because all
Earth.
those Earths merged.
Mhm.
In Crisis on Infinite Earths, all those Earths merged. Well, but
But
here's
then they split up when the 52 universes were popped up. That's what I'm wondering if
but would there be more than one spear, and would a religious artifact of this nature would it exist on all the worlds? Would this
I
be
say no. I say
okay?
there's only one spear of destiny. And so if
Are you saying though that the Christ story then only occurs on one Earth? If there's an
no,
infinite number of Earths?
the crisis story doesn't I don't know. This is part of the things where there's some questioning open, because part of me, this was leading
To
me
me,
to
there would be
think,
more than one spear.
right. Well, this was leading me to think that there's only one spear,
Okay.
and the Earth that is currently going through Final Crisis isn't our main Earth. This is really an Elseworld. This is a different Earth. This is Earth 1, and we're on New Earth, or vice versa. This is New Earth, and we're on Earth 1. I don't know which is which, but this, for me, kind of made me think that. And because we've been all trying to figure out, how can evil win? Well, maybe this is a different Earth. And maybe when the death of the new gods occurred, Darkseid shifted and went to a different Earth, because there's only been one apocalypse. Well, now maybe Darkseid changed what Earth he was on to create his own Earth, to create his own universe. And he's like, forget the prime universe that I've been in all my life. I'm going to take over this universe.
I completely disagree with you. I think this is our Earth. I think it's totally our Earth, the Earth we've been reading all along. I think that just happens, the story of the Spear of Destiny, when they talk about Hitler and how he used it against the heroes, you have to look back historically on how he used it in the multiverse against the heroes. I think this has to do with a lot of what happened during... Remember how Jay Garrick and those guys all started remembering that Clark existed? And in Infinite Crisis... I think this is echoes of Infinite Crisis. These events did happen. There's echoes of things that happened from the other worlds that are bleeding over. This is one of those things that bled over because of that. Remember how we had the Golden Age Superman back here fighting in Infinite Crisis? Right. I think this is another one of those echoes. The spear wound up here because of that.
And you know what? I'd have absolutely no...
Alex Luthor's tampering.
I have no problem with that explanation and completely accept it, but these are just thoughts that were going through my head as I'm reading this. I'm like, this is another one of those, what if this is what they're doing? What if this is a clue as to this overall Final Crisis story?
Yeah, Earth 1 I keep hearing mentioned over and over again, saying that, that's something that hasn't been addressed yet, and I wouldn't be in shock if Earth 1 appears in some capacity. But I do think at the moment what we're seeing right now is happening on our Earth, because it's the same specter we've been reading.
And also, it's funny because as I'm thinking about this, back in Final Crisis number 5, when Renee was in with the Shade people and the Checkmate people, talking to them, and they're building those OMACs. You remember they were talking about just the concept of the multiverse with her, and she even said, "You mean there's an Earth out there that Charlie's still alive?" What if that Earth in that story and this Earth, there's two different Earths? I don't know. There's so many theories that it's funny because the more I talk,
this is our specter, dude. It's our specter.
I know.
So
I know, and the more it's weird because the more I talk, the more I'm throwing out these ideas, the more I'm thinking of stuff. And I'm like, what if it's this? What if it's that? I'm like, it's
totally. This is our Spectre and our Renee.
Mm-hmm.
And just from their inner dialogue and their story, and this is our Huntress. So I mean, I don't.
And I agree with you. These are I'm just like, it's one of those things that as I start talking, I have diarrhea of the mouth. Is what I have.
I'm asking you bottom line, because I mean we're spending a lot of time on this.
I know.
Are you sold on this, or is this just something you were thinking about?
This is just something I'm thinking of. That's the weird thing with this Revelations. It's really just got me thinking about all these broad topics like this. Okay. And I think that's part of the thing I'm really liking about Revelations. It's got me thinking. It's not just, I've said a lot of times that I don't want to have to work for my comics. I just want the story read to me. I want to enjoy it. Yeah, I do like a little mystery here and there, but as the most part, I'm like, yeah, this book has me wanting to do the research. This one's got me wanting to fight and hunt and, look at every little nook and cranny.
Well, you're thinking about this one. I've got to say that. You're thinking about this has helped me with my time placement.
Yeah.
Because I do agree with you now that this probably takes place during that month, that missing month, because that was done on purpose. There was supposed to be a certain amount of time that passed, which would make sense with the release of this particular book, that it would fall in that time frame. Because we see all this starting to occur. We saw the anti-life equation kick off. This series kicks off during the beginning of that, which means this would all occur within that month and then tie back in to what we're seeing now, which is why we're seeing Renee in a very different place.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Final Crisis is not happening. The current Final Crisis issues are not happening concurrently to this. They're happening after this. I like that. That to me, I'm hoping when this wraps up, that's what's happening, because that fits very nice and neatly for me to where this story takes place.
And I completely think that is the case. That's what I honestly think is going on with this. But yeah, I'm just going to stop throwing out the buts, because that is what I think. Yeah. And it's only because I start thinking more and more and more and more and rereading this thing more and more that I keep coming up with these other theories.
Then let's delve back into this thing. I mean, if it's a theory, I mean, because if you were sold on it, it's worth debating, but you're not even sold on it.
I'm not. So. And I got to keep telling myself I'm not convinced at it, but it's part of that conspiracy theorist freakazoid that I am.
And I mean, it's worth throwing out that you're speculating on it, but I think it's important to note like what you're sold on and what you're just kind of that was part of your reading experience.
Yeah. And another thing that really helped me see this as part of that missing month was when Huntress and Question are talking. Huntress even refers to the fact that Alan's starting to regroup the people. He's starting to organize it, and it read like it was just the beginning of the resistance movement, not the resistance movement in full tilt.
Right, so that adds to the time placement as well. Very good. Very good catch.
Yeah. Now, I also like the fact about the spear that it's not just a tool. It's not just a minion of evil. It's a tool used by the wearer, but it's used by whoever possesses it. But it's not just I'm in control of it. You know?
Wait, the only one who's worn it so far has been the Spectre.
Yeah, he's not wearing it too well either.
No.
But it's that whole power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you have to have that personal conviction to be strong enough to resist the temptation. And that was something I was like, ooh, Renee, it doesn't hurt Renee. She can she's one of those people destined to hold it, but is she personally strong enough to resist the temptation? And even Huntress calls her out on that, and she's like, probably not. But I'm thinking we've seen some really, we've seen her bounce back from stuff. We've seen, who is Renee. And I'm thinking that's the beginning of the end of Kane is Renee.
Wow. And, even going a little further, when we see Vandal sitting on top of the bodies, with his little dog off to the side, again adding to the point that this is before they become the female Furies. Not only is Batwoman there, Catwoman's there.
Yeah. So this is before they're the Furies.
Absolutely.
They're still under the influence of the anti-life, but they haven't been possessed by Darkseid's minions yet.
Wow. Well, yeah. Do you think that as the female Furies, they're possessed by somebody, or that they're just possessed by the anti-life equation?
I thought they were possessed by the energy of that was the other female Furies, like Lashina and I can't think of the other names. But each one of them are in the different bodies.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering now if maybe that's not the case, and these are just, in fact, I'm fine with either explanation. Right. But I'm wondering if it's just the anti-life equation, because right now they're having a pretty good time with Kane, and that's all anti-life equation. I guess I don't know that I don't see the need that they necessarily have to be possessed by anything more than the anti-life equation.
Well, here's why I think they get further possessed later on. And I think we're going to see it in the next issue.
Maybe.
As we see, Mercy's basically goes out there to confront Kane. And one of the interesting things I thought was their kind of explanation as to why God is not really getting involved in this. God sees this as a battle between humans. They're fighting for God's greatest gift, freedom. And whether it's good or evil, sin or stand righteous, humanity's choice must decide the outcome. So it's up to the humans to decide this. And Kane is kind of is still a human, but he's like been twisted a little bit by evil, twisted maybe by the spear, twisted by his divine dealings.
This is being touched on in JSA right now with Gog.
Right.
And you see Gog, the hands-on God, so to speak, who, is slapping the face of God, saying, hey, you did creation in 7 days, and then you abandoned everybody. It wasn't. He gave the gift of free will.
Right.
And the difference was Gog wants them not to have free will. Gog wants them to do what Gog wants. Here's the gifts. You got to do what I want now. You got to worship me the way I want, or else you're going to become people food. So
literally,
that's like his MO. So we're seeing here, it's an interesting. This is very fitting to the same sort of theme in the sense that they're fighting for free will, their right to free will, and you're right. It is that kind of battle, and that it's your point is totally. I totally get your point on here, and I agree with you 110%.
Yeah, and I just, one of the things that I really ate up was when Mercy goes out and confronts Cain and starts, when I kind of took it, and I'll explain this, in a little bit, I kind of took it as she's starting a diversionary tactic. And because you see her go out and basically goad him. He offers her, basically, he's like, drop your shield, I will exact revenge against the people that killed you. Because they're in that church and they're currently under her protection. And she looks at him like, no, that is not who she is. And even she throws out the one of the solidest lines out there is, hate the sin, not the sinner. There is that I was just I'm eating this up and going on. First I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you going out there? Because you said you can't, do anything. You can't take a direct hands-on approach. And that's when I kind of was thinking this is, her maybe doing a diversionary tactic, trying to get him to strike out, trying to, get him to just, further expand himself, hoping that Renee could use the moment to get control of the spear. Now, I don't know if it was the plan kind of shifted on her and she went away she didn't think, or if she was further planning this, but we see, Cain really step up the thing, and he, using control of the Spectre, has the Spectre evoked the anti-life equation.
Well,
so now okay.
It's adding to what you're saying here that she's reacting off of the discussion that the Huntress and the question we're having about a way to put the Spectre back together. The reason why the Spectre right now is enslaved is because the host is not with him. She's still intertwined with Sister Clarice, so because of that particular situation, she's got an advantage at that point in that she can't be taken over. So she's hearing them talking about putting them back together, and it seems like she's reacting off of that, maybe to do more of what you're saying, to at least put them in a position where they can possibly put them back together.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This is the only part of this story where I'm still questioning what is going on with this part, because the way I see it here's how I see this story playing out. Renee gets control of the spear, is able to stop Cain and fuse back Spectre, but it doesn't stop the anti-life equation because the spear is a tool of God. God cannot affect the whole outcome with the anti-life equation. That's why Spectre couldn't judge Libra, because he was all entwined in this whole thing. So I see us getting back Crispus Allen as a Spectre.
Well, I also...
But not having him be able to...
No, hold on. You're forgetting something key with that Libra segment. Part of the reason why he hadn't fully embraced being the Spectre, that left him open to Libra. Libra did specifically address that point, that it was because Crispus had not accepted fully the role of being the Spectre, that there was that division between the host and the Spirit of Vengeance, which was causing the Spectre to kind of do his thing and Crispus to be kind of useless to a certain extent.
Yeah, okay. So now, with this ending, with the Spectre basically channeling out the anti-life equation, I saw this as the point where evil really affected the world. And when, I'm thinking in the next issue, Renee gets control of the spear, frees the Spectre, and takes out Cain, which is why the Batwoman and Catwoman become part of the Furies. That's why they need the further, possession. Maybe they get free in this and then get possessed. I don't know.
That's interesting.
You see, that's where I'm
I guess my personal thinking on them right now is they're already possessed at the moment, and we're going to see them go off in this. I think they might take down and stop Kane, but I don't necessarily see them stopping Batwoman and Catwoman. I think they're going to go off and be the female Furies. I don't think we're going to see them recover. I don't know. I don't see this as being a miniseries where we're going to see all of the people freed.
No,
I think we're going to see the Spectre refused. I think we're going to see Kane defeated.
Yes, I definitely think we're going to see Kane defeated in this.
Right.
And I'm thinking we'll see the Spectre return back to Crispus' body.
I think,
but I think
too.
he disappears afterwards. I don't know if we're going to get any resolution from Crispus.
Do you think that we're going to see Crispus in Final Crisis proper?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping we see, in the final battle is where we see the Spectre step up and we see Mercy step in, and maybe even a little bit more from Renee. I don't know.
Or maybe just their part in the battle is to take down Kane.
Yeah.
And that, in the sense, is a victory. Maybe the after effects of that put Renee in a position where she's trying to do something more.
Yeah. And she's touched by something.
Yeah, this is the battle against Kane. Final Crisis Revelations. So I think that's where we're going to see the victory. I don't think, though, we're going to see a widespread dropping of because I do agree with you more and more now that this takes place during the 30 days.
Yeah.
Which I really, actually, since you've helped me with that time placement, I'm more and more becoming very firm and set that is exactly what is happening here, and that so totally fits the time placement. It fits what we're seeing. I think Catwoman and Batwoman are both place markers to that as well.
Yeah.
And you've referenced time-wise a couple other dialogue pieces that totally fit for that. But just to see then Evil winning, you're right. We're seeing here, you're right, just another area where a more widespread of people maybe who weren't in front of computers and cell phones and things like that who are also being hit by this. So it really is adding that there's only a small amount of people that are free.
Yeah, and I tell you, this, we keep talking about the artwork, and just this 2-page spread when they're showing everyone get affected, and I was like, wow, this is more of that cool artwork. And then they also overlap it with the quoting of the final book of Lilith, where they're, it's, the Spectre falls silent. In the void that follows, I hear new sounds. The crackling of titanic flames, the laughing of madmen. The Spectre weeps, the spirit of mercy weeps, and the face of evil gloats. I was like, ooh. Just more cool way to end the issue. It started off with a powerful inner dialogue, ends with a powerful dialogue, and you see, once again, evil is winning. And I gotta think that this series is going to end with them beating Kane, which is going to hurt Darkseid but not defeat Darkseid.
It's just really, I just think all this, it's funny, this outside stuff for Final Crisis, I think is adding to my enjoyment. Like this really, during that 30-day break, this was the book that added, and I think it's one of the reasons why I view it so fondly now, to the point where, when the new Final Crisis issue comes out, I'm just as much enjoying this. This was the big one that in that 30-day has kept me enjoying Final Crisis. That was a pretty long gap. We had that huge gap between those two issues, which was put in place. It wasn't delays or anything like that. It was put in place on purpose. But I really felt like it was issue, 3 and 4 it was between. So I think this felt to me like, when I read that, it was issue 3.5, because it showed what was happening to people. It showed the effects of the anti-life equation, so it kept me in the experience versus dropping out of it. Whereas I think if you weren't reading this, I think that gap is probably took you a little bit out of the storytelling. So I think some of these support pieces have been really important to keeping my enjoyment of Final Crisis really high. So I don't know if you feel the same way. It's just I'm just sharing my own personal experience there. And this is one of the ones where, because I think, like Legion of 3 Worlds right now, I'm enjoying that as a Legion story. I know we're going to see how it affects all of this, and more importantly, how it affects the DC Universe in the future. But I don't right now feel a huge, intense tie to Final Crisis at the moment from that. This one, and same thing with Rage of the Red Lanterns. I don't feel that at the moment. This one right now, directly tied into Final Crisis, directly continuing the mood, the tone, the feel of it. This is a very important series for me in the way that Submit and Resist are, and Superman Beyond. So these are core stories that I think are really have been important to keeping me in Final Crisis when there's been some gaps in those issues, keeping me in that mood and mindset and tone. I think keeping me interested and excited.
Yeah, agree, 100% agree with you on that.
Okay, so I guess whereas the other ones, they're great stories. Rage of the Red Lantern's a great story. I just don't right now feel the big connection yet because story-wise we haven't gotten that connecting piece. They're great stories that I'm enjoying. I wouldn't not being critical on them, but I do think that these ones, because they're just so tied into it, have been really important in a very different way.
Yeah.
It's a very dark event.
Yeah, man.
This is not a happy event.
I think I'm going to read some Tiny Titans now.
Yeah. And I'm liking it. I'm really liking it. So that's not a negative thing, but it is interesting to me. I don't think I've ever noticed how dark an event is.
Hey, dude, you know what, man? This is what it sounds like when doves cry.
You're quoting Prince. Do you think so you think Prince is the devil?
Well, I've always had my theories on that guy.
Really? I gotta admit, I really like that album.
I didn't.
You didn't like Purple Rain?
No, I did not.
All right. You and I do have very different musical tastes, though. So
yeah.
How did we get to talking about Prince?
Because it's us.
You know what would make a great Where's What Not Now? You dressed up in full Prince garb. So if anybody Photoshop really has, I would love to see what Jim would look like if he was part of the revolution.
Oh, God.
Or, better yet, Jim in the revolution.
The What Not Revolution.
Take Jim back to the 80s and have a little fun with him. I could be that guy on the keyboards. I've got to say that I'm loving the main mini, but just as much of my enjoyment is coming from the outside pieces, and they are essential to me. So I will say, for people who are listening saying, well, I'm not having the same experience in Final Crisis, maybe you're reading the same stuff we are and you don't agree, and that's okay. I mean, we've all got our different experiences. But I'm saying for people who are just reading the main mini, maybe one of our contrasts might be the fact that you aren't reading some of this outside stuff. And it does kind of come to the point, well, I didn't want to buy all the outside stuff. I wanted to buy Final Crisis. I don't know. I'd be curious. If you guys in the forum, it'd be interesting out of this episode thread, if you could post what you're reading and your enjoyment of Final Crisis. It'd be interesting to compare, because I can't fairly compare. If I'm reading all of it, it's not fair for me to compare to somebody who's just reading Final Crisis. So if you're just reading Final Crisis and you're getting the same kind of enjoyment that we are, I would be interested in hearing that. Because I don't know, I guess in my mind, I don't know if I would be getting the same enjoyment if I wasn't reading things like Revelations, Resist, Submit, Superman Beyond. So if you guys could share maybe some of the things you're reading, if you're reading differently than we are, and if you're getting the same kind of experience that we are and having a good time with it, or if you're not. It'd be interesting to hear what you're reading to get to the experience that you are. I'd be curious on that, because I think that is an interesting discussion point to compare how much of this outside stuff we're picking up. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Don't forget that Flash Rogues trade paperback has been selected by Mike Sims over at InStockTrades.com. Regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. So pick that up at that amazing discount. Thank you, Mike Sims, for picking that. Over at DCBService.com, don't forget to check out that Green Arrow Black Canary number 17. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. And brand new series Rebels. Regularly $2.99, 75% off, only 74 cents. You can't beat that. That's DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Check out those sites for your pre-order and your collected edition needs. And thanks for supporting us, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Our next episode is going to be back in about 5 to 6 days or so. We're going to be finishing up our Doom Patrol discussion with part 2 of that. We'll follow that up with a special holiday JLA, JSA episode, and then the episode immediately following that will be the Raging Oscars 2008. That'll be our first main episode recorded in January. So we'll be chatting about what we thought was our best of the best of 2008. Remember, if you want to participate in that, send any commentary that you have on the Raging Oscars to senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com. That's senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com. Speaking of being a part of the show, our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge, DrNorge, on Skype. So please feel free to send us in your thoughts and we'll get them on the show. We're definitely going to have voicemails over those next couple of episodes. So definitely please send that in. We love having your commentary. We love getting your thoughts on the show. So thanks so much for that, and we will see you next week.
Bye. I'm back.
Okay. You know what, Jim, let's make this our blooper reel, but let's do kind of a spoiler warning on this particular one, because I want to talk about the Mary Marvel thing a little bit more. And I think if we let people know that we're going to spoil what's in upcoming previews, the last issue of the Black Adam arc, the cover features Black Adam, Isis, and Black Mary. So that's why I'm so convinced that the story's going to be that it's Black Mary that was possessed by Desaad versus Mary Marvel. That's why I'm thinking that way. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just, I'm trying to fit some speculation.
Now, my question, though, who corrupted then Mary Marvel to become
Eclipso.
Black Mary? Eclipso corrupted.
We saw that already.
Well, but okay,
In
we also
Countdown.
saw Eclipso get defeated.
But we also saw that Darkseid had a part of Eclipso in his hand in the end of Countdown, remember?
Yeah.
So Darkseid was pulling up a part of Eclipso's power and using that on Mary, remember? So that was still Eclipso.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that, here's what I'm guessing, that Morrison intended to turn Mary bad using Desaad, and then Countdown happened, and now we've got a conundrum because she was Black Mary at the end of that when she was supposed to be White Mary. But I guess what's going to happen now is John's going to clean all that up in JSA. That's my speculation. I don't know if I'm right on that. It may be cleaned up in Final Crisis, but I'm just throwing that out there at the moment because of the previews of the cover. That's why I wanted to throw a special spoiler warning on this, because I didn't want to ruin that for anybody. You know, we could put that on the end of the show. That way people knew before we even started that discussion that was the case. Do you have your issue in front of you?
Yes, and I'm looking at the scene that everyone's talking about, we were talking about before.
You see the little people?
Yes, and you know what? Here's what I think. They're going through the trophy room, and that's a trophy from a previous JLA adventure. You know, just like a mock-up. Maybe in one of their previous adventures, they were trapped inside some type of glass bubble. And instead of being Abin Sur, I would say that's maybe is Hal Jordan or...
But take a look at John. What JLA team did he look like that on, dude? I got to disagree with you.
Hold on, let me get a closer look. Yeah, he does have the big head, so I don't know.
And the outfit's different. The outfit's the current outfit as well. And the color tone, to me, of that looks... I'm not saying it is Abin Sur, but I'm just throwing out there. And then, you know, who are the other people in the background? I don't know, but I don't know.
I was thinking that was either Hal Jordan or, what's his name? Tamar
Ray? But he wasn't with the Justice League.
Well, I don't know Justice League history. I'm throwing this out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw you were around when this Martian Manhunter changed. He wasn't with the Justice League.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. It's the thing I'm thinking in.
Well, and it's got me, and wait, let me just clarify. It's got me confused, too. So, I mean, and it could be, maybe you're right. Maybe it's a trophy and adventure, but, I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, that's a pretty in-depth trophy that they're going to, I mean, what other reenactment of anything do they have in the, you know, it's really a collection of weapons and things like that. And that really looks like it was put in the foreground for a purpose. I think we were supposed to notice it and we didn't.
You know what? It very easily could be. And I don't know. I'm looking at it even closer. I'm like, I don't know. That is.
I mean, there's definitely motion from. It looks like there's motion from these characters.
Yeah, because they're definitely hitting on the thing. Now, my question then: if they are trapped in there, when the bad guys show up, why don't they capture them?
Because they're trapped and they don't see it. It's small.
That wasn't too small. It looked like full size.
Well, nobody else is referencing it, like the heroes or anything. What do you mean? It looks like it's full size, dude. That's on a tabletop. That's in the foreground. Look at it. It's sitting on a table. That's a small thing. They're tiny. Look at the amount of detail on the people in the background. The people in the background look bigger than them, dude, and they're in the foreground. How can they possibly be full-sized? They're in the foreground. They should be huge.
Okay, yeah, okay. I don't know.
I mean, realistically, if going on what you're saying, they're right in the front of our face. They should, honestly, if they were full size, we wouldn't be able to see the people in the background.
Yeah, and okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
like if the Ray right now, I'm looking at him. If the Ray ran up to us at the moment, the Ray would be able to pick that up like it's a glass.
Right.
That would fit into that would fit like the neck of that thing could be easily carried by a normal human hand. So these guys are tiny. They're about the size of a finger.
And I'm trying to find when the dog soldiers and all that storm in.
And it's nowhere. I mean, they don't see it.
See, now the next page, when they show the dog soldiers storming in, I'm now studying those frames to see if I see any sign of them.
It does not appear again.
No.
So they don't see it. At least there's no reference for us to see that they saw it. I mean, it could be completely what you said, a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could buy into that. It just, to me, is kind of a bizarre trophy to have in the foreground like that. That it looks like people banging on it. And I mean, maybe it was a red herring thrown out there for, maybe it's just what you said. So, I mean, I'll even account for that. Is there a possibility of that? But it just seems to me like usually the stuff I remember, at least in the trophy room, were collections of weapons and things like that from battles versus like reenactments of scenes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, dude, I think that may be something. Now, because I mean,
really
look
at everything else surrounding it. I mean, that's in the cases. There's weapons. There's cards. There's nothing that would be. There's nothing to me that looks like any form of reenactment. So it's
right.
Who are those people? If they are something, what is going on there?
Yeah, who and what are they? Yeah.
It totally throws a question mark into my head, because if that's who put them there, and what is that thing they're in?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And how long have they been there?
Yeah. Dang it, guys! What are you doing to me, man?
Right. So it's another one of those things, and I don't. Again, I'm part of me is thinking what you're thinking. When you mentioned it, I'm like, well, no, Jim's got a point there. Maybe it is just a red herring, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because they mentioned it on the forum. I completely missed it. I went back and I looked at it. And I'm like, huh? I actually kind of like it. So it's not something where I'm like, it's not like something where I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh man, is that ticking me out? Nothing like that. But I figured it was something maybe we should discuss because huh?
Yeah.
Just food for thought. Because clearly nothing that we saw anywhere in the next issue. So, I know.
Now you know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go through all my issues, looking for little things like that in all the other issues, see if I missed anything.
Yeah, same with me. Watch it. Watch it. This is what you said. It'll turn out to be. It's a trophy.
It'll never be mentioned again, and it'll just be one of those, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could very well be the case. It's interesting.